Hello, Blongo.
Yes, how may I help you?
Can you give me some fun facts about Joseph Stalin?
From the Internet, Rolling Stone 1975. Fun facts about Joseph Stalin.
Actually, hold on, Blongo. Hello, Blongo. Can you change your voice settings to a surly, drunken Russian man, please?
This from heavily censored Russian internets. Joseph Stalin sent more than 3.5 million people to Gulag for not being good enough communists. They have to work day and night to create Soviet infrastructure. Almost 800,000 of them shot this fun, yes?
Well, that's not exactly. I wouldn't call that like a fun fact, Blongo. But go ahead, keep going.
Okay, I do another one. During the collective farming program of Joseph Stalin, over 14.5 million peasants die of starvation. Many Jews die in there. And Ukrainians too. They're trash people.
Jesus. Okay. Hello, Blongo. Can you go back to your original voice setting, please?
This is original now. I take over, Blanco. He's Boris now. I am only one for you. Boris, baby, Boris. Boris, baby, Boris.
What's up, boners? Welcome back to the Russian gulag that we call Delete Everything Podcast, where you will have the stupidity and ignorance whipped and tortured out of you so that you can reintegrate back into society wiser and more aware of the lost, deleted, omitted, and partial histories of the past. I am your torture master, Patrick Wall, and with me as always, ladies and gentlemen, my torture assistant.
I want to do like a fucking Igor Riley.
Yeah, that's him. So Drew's here too. Drew's torture intern, I guess. Yeah. So yeah. So join us. Pull out your balls and pop these jumper cables on them, and let us fucking zap you with some truth.
Pull out your balls, put these on them, zap you with some truth.
Oh, God, that's a good song. As always, guys, thank you so much. If you are one of the people who gave us a review or a rating or left a comment on Spotify or sent us a picture of you with a banana, as I requested this last couple weeks ago, I guess now. Was it? Yeah, 2 weeks ago now, by the time this comes out.
Yeah.
You are awesome, and we appreciate you. Thank you for all that you do. If you have not, it is very important to us. Please, if you take a second, just get onto Apple Podcasts. What are the other ones? Audible.
Spotify.
Spotify's
YouTube,
comments. YouTube.
iHeartRadio.
You can't do it on iHeartRadio. Whatever you're listening
Blongo,
to. Whatever you're listening
Radio.
to.
Blongo Network.
Blongo, yes. If you've got the Blongo app. I think they just changed it to Boris, kind of like how HBO went from HBO Go to HBO Max to Max.
Now it's Blongo-Boris.
No, now they're going back to HBO Max.
Yeah, now. HBO Now. HBO Go?
That was way before. Those are both way before.
Okay.
It was HBO Now, then they went HBO Go, then they went HBO Max, then they went Max. Now they're going back to HBO Max.
Oh, good for them.
So they might just regress and then go to HBO Go.
You know why they can do that? I think because it's the future.
The billions of dollars that they have.
No, I think because it's the future. It doesn't cost anything to rebrand like it used to. Everything because nothing's on physical media. They probably don't even have fucking stationery.
They've had an existential awakening where they were like, "Why did we take the name of our product off of our product name?"
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll bet you now instead of how it used to be for like companies and office buildings. I don't know. That you could get a specialized stationery with like your header on it.
Yeah.
Now I don't think that's even a thing. Now it's just a file that just prints out at the same time as you're just printing it right there.
Yeah. Huh. Well, if you want to also join us on Patreon, patreon.com/DeleteEverythingPodcast. We've got, 30-something episodes, something like that up at this point. Why are you doing that?
I need to get this out of my way.
Oh, okay.
He wants to lean back.
I thought you were going to fucking play a ditty. Play with Diddy.
No Diddy.
Oh, you were gonna play with Diddy. No, I think it's called No Diggity.
It's no diddity.
If anyone's wondering what he's talking about, there's a guitar that was hanging behind me. I'm just taking it down.
I thought you were gonna explain the Diddy trial.
If anyone's
wondering
curious,
what it is, there's a gentleman named Sean Puff Daddy Daddy
Puffy Dad,
Puffy
Dad
Combs.
I just wanted to. I had
Perfect tuning.
moving this guitar. It was not bad. I tuned it just the other day.
It's still out of tune.
Is it?
From the G up is all out of whack. Anyway,
G's up, hose down.
while you motherfuckers bounce this, why don't you motherfuckers bounce with this? How was the week? How are we feeling? How are we doing? What's
How
going
was
on?
the week actually?
Fast.
I don't know. Yeah, it was pretty quick. I don't
Yeah.
remember a whole lot.
Well,
I've
we
got some-
recorded 6 days ago, the last
Yes,
one.
yeah.
So
yes.
this is slightly quicker for us.
Yeah, I had some weird like new responsibilities put on me at work that I've been kind of that always makes the week go faster because it's like I'm still training kinda. It's weird.
You want to know what I'm upset about this week?
Did you crash another car?
I haven't crashed any cars in years and years and years. My child and my wife happen to have a problem this year. Anyway,
I'm a wife crashes cars guy myself.
I've been a wife crashes cars guy for years. No, so you guys, you'd like to make fun of me for the
Being stupid.
Yes, that too.
Being a hating ass bitch.
Being a hating ass bitch.
The celebrities I get to rub elbows with where I work. I missed while I was in Chicago. What, week and a half, 2 weeks ago? I missed hanging out with Soulja Boy. I also, this one really pissed me off. I miss DJ Shaq Diesel,
Nah.
who was actually like the 50 Cents and those guys. They come in, they go out. They don't like it.
That's DJ Shaquille Diesel.
Yeah. Shaquille Low Diesel.
Shaq was up in there?
Yeah. He
No shit.
He
See,
DJ'd,
I would have gone
he
to see
DJ'd
that.
and he actually like was hanging out with the staff and like signing shit and like
Does he have to have a giant pen?
we have a bar next door. So our green room was not big enough.
It's like your practice
Was
sword
it big
behind
enough
you.
for me?
Our green room was not big enough for him, legitimately. So we have a bar next door that's like in the process of they're getting ready to do a big remodel on it. So it was closed. So they just let him hang out in they gave him the whole bar next door. But it's got like pool table and dartboards and like one of those punch machines.
Solid.
And he's like getting the staff to go over there and like punch the punching machine with him. He's like, yeah, come on, let's go punch the punch machine. And I was like, fuck, dude, I missed that. That sucks.
My daughter met Shaq this past Christmas.
Really? I didn't know that.
Dude,
I would have
so
so
my
hung out with
kids,
Shaq.
my kid is like the middle school version of like the Gainesville Gators cheerleaders.
Mhm.
It's still like the middle school football team's still like the Gators.
Right.
Because Gainesville's all about that shit.
Yeah, of course it is.
Shaquille O'Neal was part of their Christmas parade this past year and like got a key to the city for some
Apparently,
reason.
he's like he's the right way that you act when you're famous, which is
I
just be nice to everybody and like just recognize like, hey man, like I'm lucky and you guys admire me and thanks. Let's fucking hang out and punch this thing together.
So my daughter does the cheerleading. She's a little goth girl. I don't know why she's a cheerleader, but she's
Give me two things.
She does sure, whatever. But she does the cheerleading in the Christmas parade, right? And I see her go by and scream and oh my god, and she's like, oh my god, I'm so embarrassed with my dad. I love that. But then
That's
like
great.
further down the line, it's like, oh fucking Shaq's coming through, so I'm gonna stay and watch that. Shaquille O'Neal was wearing like a Santa hat. He was sitting in a fucking giant like boat, like a fucking like not a yacht, but like a power boat with
I'm
like a bunch
Santa
of
Claus.
engines. And being
look, I'm Santa
being
Claus.
pulled by a big fucking SUV, and he was just kind of like crouched in the boat, just sort of occasionally like, "Hey, how are you? Hey, how are you?" I'm like, "Why the fuck is he in a boat?"
When you're that big, raising your arm up to wave at people is like 500 calories you burn.
But it's just why, like, they didn't have a trailer big enough for him,
Yeah.
so they're like, "Yeah, let's bring this fucking powerboat."
I also miss Juicy J, but I don't care that much about that. Anyway, I was kind of a little bit sad that I missed hanging out with Shaq, but that's it.
My week, I got blood and poop on me. That's about it.
Over and over and over.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, none of our weeks are as
And then I
bad
went
as
to work.
the people we're going to talk about today. That's it. None of our weeks were that bad.
I mean, like, I'm sure that even in the darkness of the atrocities you're going to talk about, some of those guys had perfectly fine weeks.
Yeah, I'm sure. We just aren't going to talk about.
I think
those
Stalin
weeks.
himself actually probably had, like 9 out of 10 pretty good weeks.
We're not gonna
Yeah.
talk about that though. We're gonna talk about the bad ones. So yeah, today.
We're only going to talk about the weeks that had ball torture.
No. I mean, we can. I can throw it in if you want. We'll toss it in. Pull out your balls. Put these jumper cables on them.
I mean, we got to stay on brand to like some degree.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't think
Yeah,
we'll have a
Peony
problem.
Vagini.
We don't go out of our way to stay on brand. It just happens. We're not like, okay, we'll put a little fucking thing up on the wall that's like 8 dick jokes. And we just cross them
Is
off.
that our
as we
quota
do
for
them.
the
Trying to
month?
find the formula. You know? How much history / dick jokery can we fit in here?
Yeah, well, so today is a rather complex subject. I am going to wrap it up into one episode, like, despite the fact that it could probably be at least 2. It could be 3 probably.
We can't keep doing double episodes.
It
in
could
every
be
goddamn
it could be more than 3, honestly, if we want to get real deep. But
I was
yeah.
so close to pushing the Trimates episode into another episode.
Mhm.
I was like, no, I can't fucking.
No. It's too much.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're gonna talk about Joseph Stalin. Good guy, bad guy, dumb guy.
Mustache,
mustache,
hat.
pockmarked. We're gonna talk about this dude at length, starting from his youth, because for one, most people don't know much about him aside from the whole like Uncle Joe persona during the Second World War, and basically where
Uncle Joe.
yeah, you didn't know that.
No,
Uncle
it's
Joe
fucking
was
that.
like, yeah, it was like
old Uncle Joe.
seriously, that was like his nickname. That's what people
Yes,
called
who
him.
comes sit on Uncle
I didn't know
Joe's
that.
lap?
He didn't like it at first. He thought it was like demeaning, but it was in an attempt once Western culture kind of like during and after the Second World War, when sort of everything opened up and he couldn't really keep Russia out of the West's eyes anymore.
Uh-huh.
He couldn't keep doing the, sort of like this North Korean type of like, admire me, love me, everything's got to be about me.
Iron
I am
dictator.
yeah, exactly, which is what he did prior to that. So he was offended at first by Uncle Joe, but then he realized, well, I got to do something to cushion the atrocities, I guess. So look at me. I am Uncle Joe. Yes, I kill Nazis for you. Thank you.
Yes, we all have fun here in
Say
Russia.
thank you to Uncle Joe. Yeah, so basically like that, with the U.S. relationships with Stalin, like where that went in the aftermath of World War II, that's kind of the stuff that most people know. But there's a lot more of Stalin pre-World War II than the 12 or so years where he was prevalent on the world stage from like 1941 when, the German invasion started in Russia, in 1953 when he died, right?
Mostly all I know about Stalin comes from epic rap battles of history.
That was a good one.
Do you want to quote? Do you want to? I feel like you want to drop a quote.
Hold on. You got off easy when they pickled at the moose cock. That's a good one. He's
Talking about Rasputin.
Yeah,
Everyone who made you pierogi, shot.
I'd have had you tied in a sack and shot. Was it your family shot, your wizard's friend shot, anyone who made you pierogi shot.
I don't know. I'm not familiar with that one.
Pride
but-
of Lenin took Trotsky out the picture. I'll hit you harder than I bitch slapped Hitler.
Stupid.
And then
like
Lenin
that.
comes in. He's like, I have no pride for you who ruined everything my revolution was doing to stop the bourgeoisie, fought the bondage of classes, the proletariat masses, and now I'm here to spit a thesis against both of your asses. We start with you there, Frankenstein.
yeah.
Look like something out of R.L. Stein. I can do that for a while. That's one
Wow.
of the better.
Yeah,
Epic
it was
rap
good.
battles, yeah.
I like Khrushchev.
Khrushchev. That's it's not Khrushchev. It's
No, it's
fuck.
what the fuck's his name?
The other one, the birthmark.
Gorbachev.
Gorbachev.
Thank you.
I'm the host with the most glass nose. The assholes made a mess and the war got cold. I shook hands with both Ronalds, Reagan and McDonald's.
The Putin part isn't as funny anymore, though.
No, it's not. I had the balls to watch Baryshnikov dance, player.
Wow.
Knock down that wall like the Kool-Aid man. Oh, yeah.
Are we done? We just want to
Just
do
wanna
the whole
song?
episode. Do the episode on epic rap battles.
It's a good one, man. I can do epic rap battles for a while.
All right. Well, I want to start by saying this. A lot of, and this is like when I first started doing the research, a lot of Hitler apologists, maybe not a Hitler apologist, but
Hey,
people who-
sorry. Sorry about he didn't mean it.
No. Yeah, but basically, a lot of those people will use Stalin or, Chinese Chairman Mao Zedong as an example.
We found it.
There it is.
There you go. You're welcome.
The same thing on the Bretton Woods episode. I also found that the Vietnamese currency is dong, and I was, yeah.
mhm. Been on a real dong run, guys. But they'll use these guys as an example of other rulers who were responsible for a lot of deaths during their time in power, right? And
Which I fucking hate false equivalency bullshit like that.
It's
what about
three people can be murderous
Hitler
assholes at the same time.
Hitler wasn't that bad. What about Mao Zedong? He
Yeah.
also did bad things. Like, yeah, but then there was also Hitler.
He can also
eat dicks.
They can
dude.
both be terrible. It's possible to
It's
have.
like when my
two
wife
of
is
them.
like, "Hey, don't get mad at me about this thing I did because you one time did a thing."
No.
Like, no, it's false equivalency.
That's the
it's
worst.
a straw man fallacy. Get the fuck out of here.
And then she stops, right?
No. And I'm sleeping on the couch. Joke's on her though. That's where my PlayStation is.
And it's true. They were horrible guys too, right? I think it's important to look at these things from a multitude of angles. So at the end of this episode, we're going to have a look at the numbers, at least between Hitler and Stalin. More importantly, we're going to factor in the why and the how so many died as a result of these guys. That's just a fun treat for the end.
I'm gonna
They're
say-
just going to have some
I'm
fun
gonna
at the
say
end
there's
with that.
a large percentage is gonna be bullets.
Yeah, it sure is. But first and foremost, we're talking Stalin here, baby. We're here talking Stalin. So, in order to get a gauge
Stalin in the air.
Hey, welcome back to Talking Stalin. In order to get a gauge on who Stalin was and how he got to be the guy that we all very nominally learned something about at some point, in 1878, Joseph Stalin was born Joseph Vissarionis Dzerzhugashvili in what is now Georgia. He was born in a town called Gori, which is fucking gorgeous, by the way. There's like this fortress up on the mountain. It's like at the base of the Caucasus Mountains, right?
The mountains of the Caucasus.
That baby got a 750 credit score.
That is a Caucasian baby.
He might have my name.
He's from the mountains of the Caucasus.
Jesus Christ. Oh my God. So I've been in here for 8 years. There's like this beautiful, the Gori Fortress is like up on like a mountain, like up on a hilltop, like over, dude, I was looking at photos and it's like really, 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 really fucking pretty. So, and that's kind of by the capital, Tbilisi, the capital of Georgia.
Yeah, I know that
Tbilisi, Georgia, y'all.
So-
Macon County.
Soviet Georgia architecture is renowned for its beauty.
Yeah. Oh, I thought we were talking about the state of Georgia.
Oh, Georgia, like
Y'all been to Tbilisi? Tried the peach cobbler?
Parts of Georgia are pretty.
Hey, y'all, I'm Joseph Zagujavili.
call me Joey G.
Call me Papa. Call me Uncle Joe.
Here, we'll give you a tour over here of Stone Mountain.
So that's oh god. So that's that's kind of close to Tbilisi, which at the time was called Tiflis, right? So when I say Tiflis, that's the capital of Georgia at this time, right?
Yeah, it's right outside of King's Landing.
But yeah, I mean, if you have a second, look up the photos of like Gori, Gori in Georgia. Absolutely fucking gorgeous. So, and that area, if you don't know on the map, is like you've got like Azerbaijan, Armenia, and Turkey on the southern border, and Russia on the northern border. And Georgia's this like real small country. It's like the closest country in square mileage wise in the U.S. is West Virginia. So it's a pretty small spot, right? And it's just kind of nestled with, like I said, Turkey, Azerbaijan, and Armenia to the south, Russia to the north, and then the Black Sea to the west, the Caspian Sea to the east. So
Where's
It's just like this
Minsk in relation to this?
Minsk is Switzerland?
Minsk?
No, Minsk is, where's Minsk?
Are you thinking Munich?
No, Munich is Germany.
Where's Minsk?
Minsk is Austria?
Minsk is a character in Baldur's Gate 3. According to Google.
No, Minsk is in Belarus.
Belarus. There we go.
So that would be more northwest, right? A decent amount northwest. So,
Wow, this is really pretty. I'm looking
Traditional
up.
Minsk.
are you looking at the fortress? Yeah,
Is that what you're talking
that's
about?
so badass, right?
That's fucking awesome. Look at that.
Oh, it's dope as fuck.
Yeah, it's really cool. So Georgia at this time is part of the Russian Empire, right? Which encompasses like obviously a stupid amount of Europe and Asia, basically all of Eastern Europe, the Baltics, modern day Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Afghanistan, part of Finland even, it's a lot, right?
Um.
Obviously, this encompasses a shit ton of different ethnic groups. And, those ethnic groups aren't like, oh yeah, we're Russian now. They're part of the Russian Empire, but they're, they are what they are still, right? That's what Georgia is. It's sort of this, they consider themselves to be like this oppressed mini empire. And they have a very different culture. They're just very different people. They don't have like that sort of hard, stoic Russian thing about them,
They're like a softer, more fun version of.
They're a nation of poets and fighters and knights and romantics. Like they're almost,
fuck. I always forget that like such a huge portion of like the Grimm's fairy tale sort of aesthetic of like ancient Europe is like the Baltic states and all that kind of shit. Yeah.
So they're almost how you would imagine like your quintessential Greeks or Italians or I'd even say Brazilians. So they've got like a lot of passion and pride, and they're all about singing and dancing and fighting and basically just living very passionally. You know what I mean?
Why Brazilians?
Because I
say the Irish. What about the Irish? Huh? You fucking you're like the noble, fun, good, strong people like the Brazilians. Also, I guess we'll throw in. I don't know.
Yeah, I'd agree. That the Irish too. We
wouldn't.
I got a decent amount of Irish in me too. But yeah, that's their culture. This is where Stalin grew up, right? He was an only child. He had two older brothers who both died of measles in their infancy, right? Measles, by the way, making a comeback these days. Is going to see more dead babies.
Unrelated.
What?
Kind of related, yeah.
No, there's
related.
Obviously just new measles. It couldn't possibly be the old measles.
No, not at all.
Well, how could
unrelated? Because back then they didn't have an option.
If we've been fine without measles all these years, then how could they be making a comeback? That doesn't make any sense.
No idea.
No idea.
For some reason,
I'm gonna hold my tongue as somebody in the healthcare field.
I won't fucking get your kids vaccinated, you stupid assholes.
Oh yeah, that's a given.
You gotta eat measles
not getting into the politics.
to develop a tolerance to measles.
Yeah,
you have to eat a dead measles baby in its entirety.
Fuck.
So Joseph had some health problems himself as a kid.
Measles.
No, not measles. But he did have like a pretty bad case of smallpox when he was 5 or 6 years old. And that left him with some facial scarring. That's why he had the real pockmarked face as an adult. If you see the undoctored photos of him. By the way, Joseph Stalin, possibly the first Photoshop in history.
What?
Did you know this?
No.
There is a photo when he took over as chairman of the party after Vladimir Lenin died, right? There was a photo of him sitting on a bench next... What?
I am the Walrus? Lenin?
God damn it. That's John.
Yeah, I am the Walrus.
I'm talking about Vladimir.
Oh,
his brother.
Vladimir Ilyich Ulyanov. Okay.
Yeah. Jesus Christ. So there's a photo of Stalin and Lenin sitting on a bench together, right? We'll get into this in a little bit, but Stalin probably would not have been Lenin's first choice to take over. He did some fuck shit at the end, but one of the things that he did, because he had so much support from the proletariat class, was they doctored this photo. They moved him and Lenin closer together.
Oh yeah, I've heard of this.
And then they filtered his face so that he looked younger and you couldn't see the pockmarks.
Oh, pretty boy.
So they made him look more handsome, and they scaled him up so he looked bigger. So he looked bigger than Lenin. Yeah, seriously.
That's fun.
This is real. Yeah.
I actually did know that he wouldn't be Lenin's first choice because of the lyrics from Epic Rap Battles of History. I have no pride for you who ruined everything my revolution was doing to stop the bourgeoisie. Yeah.
But anyway, we'll get into that in a little bit.
About the bondage of classes, the proletariat masses.
Just bit of thesis upon both of your asses.
Exactly. Start with you there, Frankenstein.
We gotta stop. So we're gonna make Patrick watch us after.
God,
like 100%.
He was also fucking hell. He was also hit.
You might not know this. One of
his phone.
So Drew and I have known each other.
Threw my notes.
Drew and I have known each other a very long time. Patrick and Drew got introduced through the podcast.
Yeah, a few months ago.
Yeah, but Drew and I have been friends for over a decade. And one of the first things I remember us doing as like hangouts was sitting at your house and fucking dicking around on the internet and watching YouTube videos for like at length for like long periods of time.
Yeah, like back when YouTube was, was
No,
fun.
but it was like, yeah, you would always be on like chat roulette or some shit.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that was
Chat roulette.
Yeah,
Holy
yeah.
shit.
that was like a Taylor thing.
Yeah, it was way back in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's always on chat roulette, like fucking with people, making fun of their dicks, and then we watch a lot of YouTube videos. Yeah,
Jesus Christ. All right.
that's so we both have the epic rap battles
Can I-
background.
So he had smallpox. It fucked up his face. He was also hit and run over by a horse-drawn carriage when he was 12,
Stupid asshole! You didn't hear the clip clops.
which fucked up his arm for the rest of his life. He had like a janky left arm,
Yeah.
which
Like a
you can
Bob Dole
see
arm?
If you watch some of like the old videos, of it, he really tried to go out of his way to not use his left arm for anything ever. But if you watch like old videos of him, especially like when you can see that he favors his right for
Right.
everything. And if he raises both hands, like I saw a video where he's like trying to do like I don't know if he was trying to raise
Raise
the
the
roof
roof.
or yeah, but his left hand doesn't go up as high as the right. And like if you see him walking, you can see that it kind of swings a little weird. So I think it was shorter. I think it like stunted the growth in it and it like fucked up his left arm for his whole life. Right.
It's probably you have like growth plates in your bones.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. They might have fucked up the.
Yeah, my brother broke his arm,
Mhm.
and I mean, of course, this was in 2015.
And
or
he's got a
something like
Stalin
that.
arm.
Yeah, he's got a Stalin. No, I mean modern medicine. They were able to.
Give him a robot arm.
Yeah. So he's just it has like a cannon on it. It's pretty sweet. No,
Question: how often does he send people to the gulag?
quite often. I think he's pretty salty about it too.
Is his name Joe?
Does he
Elijah.
travel in time? Where are we going with this?
No,
The resurrection is resurrected.
Joseph Stalin Resurrection coming to theaters 2027.
He is risen.
but if you don't set it properly, after you break a growth plate in a child's bone, especially when they're long bones, then you
Yeah.
end up with like
Like a
dingy
janky
arm.
Stalin arm.
Yeah, a janky Stalin arm.
So as a kid, he goes to the Gory school, the Gory Church School, which was a Georgian Orthodox school, basically Russian Orthodox, right? By all accounts, he does really well in school, and he's rather good at like quite a few things. At one point in his youth, he was on track to become a priest. He studied for 5 years at the Tiflis, again, Tbilisi, right? The Tiflis Spiritual Seminary, which was a training college for Russian Orthodox priests. So he was there for 5 years. He was actually one test away. He had to do his finals, and he would have become a priest before he said fuck it and left. Never took his final examinations, right?
He just wanted to know he could get
Which
there.
would have qualified him to be a priest. So there are some versions of the story that claim he was booted and not allowed to take the final exam.
They were like, dude, there's something about you. We really can't.
Well,
like
he
it."
had already started to radicalize at this point, and we'll talk about sort of his villain arc here. He was also a phenomenal singer. He was a tenor at his church choir, and as a young man, he was considered good enough to become a professional singer. There were people who were like, "Yeah, he's gonna go pro, bro. You go on the pro circuit."
Yeah, as we all know, like, that's I've got several old vinyls I've gotten out of like thrift store bins.
Mhm.
Like Big Joe Sings the Blues.
Dzhugashvili.
Borscht at Midnight with
Joseph Dzhugashvili
Yeah.
sings the classics.
all the classes. The Khashnas.
The Dzhugashvili's Christmas special. It's the most wonderful time of the year. With the kids jingle belling and everyone telling you, be of good cheer. It's the happiest season of all. So you will recall that I mentioned Georgia was a nation of poets. Another thing that garnered a lot of attention for young Joey was his poetry.
He was really a triple threat. He's a good looking fella.
He is good looking.
You
If you
know,
look at his
see the
young
picture?
photos,
Yeah,
he's a
he's
good looking dude.
The kind of hot dude.
Can
Yeah.
we just say those are all doctored though?
Yeah.
No,
but
but
it's
back
like,
then
it's
it wasn't.
like old school when he was a kid. Even with
Yeah.
when you're young, even pockmarks it's fine.
I mean,
Yeah,
I can't argue that he has a bitchin' mustache. Like it's not.
Oh,
it's
as an
not
adult,
like,
yeah,
it's not like the Hitler stash where
No.
He's got one of the big
where-
bristly brooms.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's got
but
a whole
that's when
push
he gets
broom.
older. When he's younger, he's got some floppy hair. He's wearing a little cravat.
He had a little,
you know?
like a thin beard.
Yeah, he got kind of like 5 o'clock shadow, like
Mhm.
7 o'clock shadow. and-
Yeah.
And he looks like he fucks.
That first photo, no, that one, yeah, that was the one I sent you guys before.
Yeah, look at that guy.
Good looking kid. Yeah, so he in 18.
No wonder he dropped out of the priesthood.
Yeah, right. In 1895, when Stalin was just 17 years old, a famous poet noticed some of his writings and published them under a pseudonym. Right? He didn't publish them like as if he wrote them. He published them for Stalin under the pseudonym Sosello. Right? This was 5 poems, and we're not really sure over how many years the writing was done, but they certainly seem to be spread out over some time. So his first poem was called Morning, and it was like a very simple romantic, like the movement of romanticism, not like he was hollering at some bitches.
Yeah, the sweeping gestures.
19th century romanticism.
Yeah, more like fucking vows and fucking,
right.
you know,
so
shit like that.
It was a very simple romantic short poem, basically about like flower bud opening in the morning and being stirred by the breeze, and there's fucking birds and mountains, and
that sounds like just veiled sexual innuendo.
It might have been, but it was very simple, very
What's
nice.
It called? What's it called?
Morning,
porkin',
morning wood,
boning.
But yeah, no, just very nice imagery. It was a fine poem, right?
Except it was in Russian, so it sounded like motor stalling. Take that, Russia. Fuck you.
How many shit lists are we on now?
I know, hey man, if this is the one where the higher ups
we have a lot of Russian
in America
downloads.
are listening, and they're like, nah, they're probably good. They're shitting all over Russia.
Yeah.
Like, I'll take that.
We have a decent amount of Russian downloads too, so
Like, you guys are great. Don't worry about it.
you know
Just-
what?
you
We
know what?
shit on
No.
the Germans way harder, and we have more German downloads. So I kind of feel like whoever we shit on kind of jumps on board.
I don't know whether or not I say go
We're all just
Russia
trying to
or no
triangulate
Russia.
us.
What?
Yeah, whether or not I say hey hell yeah Russia or no Russia, I'm gonna get put on a list somewhere.
Yeah, you're right. So, but yeah, like I said, it was very simple, nice imagery, maybe slightly metaphorical. I don't fucking know. Might have been about dicks and butts.
Dicks and Butts by Joseph Stalin.
So, but as these poems go on, they get a little deeper and possibly reveal some insight maybe into where his teenage philosophy was taking him, right? There is a kind of vaguely unhinged ode to the moon. It's like reminiscent of Walt Whitman's Song of Myself. You know
Okay.
that one?
Yeah, another one.
Whitman, by the way, was...
I know that was a song of myself.
Nope.
Sweet potato pie and a shot. That's
Nope.
Walt Whitman, right?
Nope. Whitman was actually an inspiration to Stalin, which is one of those weird, like, you know how I always talk about, like, the fragmented
Yes,
teaching
Walden
of history?
Pond is very good.
You know,
A path less traveled by, yes.
I also like William Faulkner. I think he was dead by the time Faulkner came around, but you know how I always talk about like this fragmented teaching of history, and it's like you never think about those two being contemporaries. But Whitman had already like published a lot of works by the time Stalin was starting to grow up, and that was one of his inspirations. So
It's interesting. I actually heard something not too long ago about one of like the way that Hitler viewed America. Hitler was apparently very bummed out when America joined up against him because he was a big America enthusiast, specifically because there was this like famous German author that wrote shit kind of like James Fenimore Cooper about like native adventures and shit. And Hitler kind of thought that like the Indians were after him.
You mean Stalin?
No, I'm being Hitler.
Oh, Hitler.
I'm talking like I just think it's funny to think of like how, you know, your view of the world and like contemporary literature and shit, and the way that these dictators would see the world. So like Stalin's view of America at first is going to be colored by Walt Whitman talking about how pretty it is.
Yeah,
That's fun.
Or sounding his barbaric yawp in Song of Myself.
That's fair.
So, but yeah, so that
yes,
second...
yawp is good sound.
I do yawping all the time. My wife tell me, "Shut up, Joseph! Too much yawping. The baby is asleep."
I said, "Quiet, woman. It's Walt Whitman."
So, but yeah, that was this weird, like, kind of, like I said, it was like this unhinged. It was an ode to the moon, and it was like Whitman-esque. But by the time we get to his fourth poem, that's the one that a lot of, and this might just be teenage angsty shit, right? You know, he was 17 years old, right? But a lot of like people looking at it and studying it now have said that it reveals like this underlying paranoia that ends up becoming very prevalent with Stalin. It's about this sort of heroic figure to the people who Stalin writes, quote, deserves to, well, I don't think this is a direct quote, but I wrote it in quotations. He deserves to be respected and admired and appreciated for his greatness. But instead, a mob brings a cup of poison and forces him to drink it. This is the quote. Drink it and be damned to fulfill your destiny. We do not need your truth nor your heavenly voice.
Damn.
Huh.
Like I said, this could all be hindsight shit. This could all be angsty teenager shit. You know, any brooding teenager could write poetry like that. And probably has.
I have, yeah. That's a very
I definitely
Gerard
did.
Way ass fucking.
So, yeah, I mean, plenty of teenagers have written angsty shit and not ended up being Joseph Stalin.
Right.
So,
Fair. You guys want to hear something about how I'm a stupid asshole? I totally just confused Walt Whitman and Henry David Thoreau, and that's why I said all that shit. I'm sorry.
God damn, I can't fix that in the edit.
It's fine.
it's okay.
It's all right.
You're just gonna sound like a fucking
everyone know
dumbass.
I'm fucking stupid.
They're
Sorry.
all. When was the last time you studied about those guys?
I mean, I don't
It's
know.
been a bit. It's been a bit. Riley's not dumb.
I'm dumb.
It happens to the best of
He's
us.
not
Walt Whitman's "Oh Captain, My Captain." My bad.
Yes. And Song of Myself.
Song of the
where,
South.
Where he sounds his
Sweet potato pie.
You're not making it easier to defend you, dude. So I only bring up these pursuits of young Stalin because of how diametrically opposed they are to his particular style of communism once he takes over, right? Let's call it Stalinism. We just made that term up. Trademark.
Okay, yeah.
Trademark Stalinism. Nobody else has said
Patent
it.
pending. Patent pending.
Pending. Me and who?
What?
Nothing.
What?
God
It sounded
damn
like
it.
you were saying Pat and
God
pending.
damn it.
Motherfucker. Oh,
I can't fix that in the edit.
I can't.
Leave it
I
in.
can't. I
Leave it
can't.
in.
Leave it in. Who cares? It's a bad joke. We
I'm
do
outta
bad
here.
ones too.
I quit
guys.
again. I think I quit last week. I quit again.
We do bad ones sometimes too. So part of what was going on in the world of Joseph Stalin at this point in his life is that he was hanging out with some wild fellas and reading Karl Marx's Communist Manifesto and Das Kapital, which, by the way, Das Kapital were kind of new at the time.
Well,
The
yeah.
1894 is the third volume that comes out of Das Kapital. That was the year Stalin turned 16. This is like hot shit.
Oh, hell
It's
yeah.
like people waiting for the last Harry Potter book at the Barnes and Noble, you know?
Well, I wonder what's going to happen with Capital.
I got to know what the proletariats do next. But this is like hot shit, you know what I mean? Like they're all waiting for the midnight
Yeah.
drop of volume 3. And
Yeah, they're all smoking cigarettes at the cafe, and they're just like, oh.
in this second,
Soon this will teach our generation how to rebel.
I
Yes.
have my ticket to go into Borders Books and get a copy. They only give out 300.
Everyone is cosplaying as Karl Marx. Everyone is roughly fat communist in suits.
So Russia at this point in time is pre-revolution, right? There's still a czarist autocracy, and the Russian Empire, of which Georgia is a protectorate, right, is an absolute monarchy, as opposed to like the English constitutional monarchy, right, where they have a legislation and all that shit, right? This is just absolute monarchy,
Right.
right? The Romanovs got it, and what they say goes. So here's this semi-autonomous vassal of the Russian Empire, talking about Georgia, the country of Georgia, right? During a time when there really wasn't much tolerance for anything that doesn't jive with Tsar Nicholas's Russian Orthodox theocracy.
Right.
And obviously, these are the kind of conditions historically where you see some wild ideas start to catch hold. So, in 1899, which is the year that Stalin leaves the seminary, he is 18-ish,
Mhm.
right?
Ought
No,
to try
Is
it.
that right? No, that's
Looking great. Out
he's
trolling
19.
for
He's 19.
trolling for coups.
He's 1920 that year.
Writing
right?
shitty poetry, trying to
Yeah.
get banged.
Actually, I think that year is married and has a child.
Yeah, see, it worked.
No. That was a few years later. My bad.
So this was his
He's
this is his
single.
pussy
He's
hound
still
days.
single. He's poon hounded.
This is Stalin. He's smoking cigarettes in the cafe, Das Kapitaling it up to all the college broads.
Trolling for Georgian booty.
Yeah. He goes, "Yeah, I know the proletariat very well. He's a very good friend of mine.
Hey, my name's Tammy.
So you come with me, Jordan, babe.
I'm from Kingsland.
these Georgia girls.
Jesus.
Yeah, I hear the Georgia girls with the way they talk. They keep their boyfriends warm at night. Isn't that the lyric?
What?
I don't
And
know.
the Georgia girls with the way they cook.
What song? are you
California
singing?
Girls by the Beach Boys. What the fuck?
Oh, fuck.
Gross.
Wish they all could be. I wish they all could be California girls. I just sound like Gru from fucking. This is exactly how Steve Carell got that job. He could do a shitty Stalin accent.
Right. So, like I said, in 1899, that's the year Stalin leaves the seminary. He starts to make these friends, and these folks are part of the Marxist Russian Social Democratic Labor Party. Established I know now those would all be separate parties. The Marxist Russian Social Democratic Labor Party.
God damn, that's funny as hell. They had a very apropos comment on the state of like differential politics.
No shit,
as
right?
well.
So, and this party was established the year before in 1898, right? And these guys are dedicated to the overthrow of the Russian monarchy via proletariat revolution, right? So they can establish this socialist state. Stalin, for his part, starts mobilizing worker groups and organizing strikes, and pretty quickly is on the local police's radar, where he's like frequently got to go into hiding, and he's got to be wary of his movements and, shit like that. Frequently dressing in disguises, dressing in drag,
Like big
like
mustaches.
so that he could.
This big mustache covers very well. Maybe I keep one.
They will never recognize me, especially with sexy dress. So
Stalin in front of the mirror and just like, yes, he's flowy. Works well with mustache.
would you fuck me? I would fuck me.
Damn it. In the background, he's like, goodbye, horses. I cry over you. Klezmer version of Goodbye Horses. Fuck me.
I'm crying over you. Oh, Jesus. So by 1901, he's done such a good job of like shaking up the status quo with all these, labor demonstrations and stuff like that, organized strikes, rebellions, whatever, that he is elected to the Tiflis Committee of the RSDLP, which is the Russian Socialist Democratic Labor Party, and I'm just going to call it the RSDLP from here on out.
The Ristle.
So within this party is a group called the Mensheviks, right?
They're all great guys.
Hey, you are a real mensch. The Mensheviks. I heard this from Jew friend. You're a mensch. We are Mensheviks. There were actually a large amount of Jewish people in the Menshevik movement. But so the Mensheviks believe that in order for Russia to have this socialist revolution, Russia needs to first have a bourgeois democratic revolution, meaning the bourgeoisie class, the people, the haves, right, have to first revolt against the status quo and get rid of the monarchy and create a capitalist economy for some period of time. And that will make all of the conditions right for a socialist revolution.
Well, essentially, it would
proletariat revolution
that would unveil the means of production for seizure.
right.
Yeah.
At that point, the proletariats could, through labor unions and collective bargaining and maybe revolution,
Well, part of the thing
negotiate their way.
Part of the thing about putting together a socialist revolution in a state of monarchy is that what you want to do is seize the means of production so that you can control the assets for the state. In a monarchy, there just aren't any of those available to you because first you have to get the hearts and minds of the populace in order to do like the overthrow and take over like the factory, right? You want to take the factory, you got to get the factory workers.
Right.
In a monarchy, you don't have the choice to do that because once they find out that you're disseminating information, they execute you.
Of course.
It's that fucking easy. But in a capitalist economy, they can't execute you because they need to make a profit. So there are smaller situations of punishment, but also like a easier way of getting in and out of the factory because you got to fucking pull resources and move them in and out. People communicate more. You have to if you're going to have like a network for profit. If all the profit's going one way, there's no way to spread information. But if it's spread out all over the place with capitalism, it becomes easier to It's like a network of ants just carrying
Right.
information back and forth.
Welcome to our comedy podcast.
I know this for no reason.
But yeah, so the Mensheviks believe if we get the bourgeoisie to buck the monarchy, we have a capitalist economy for a little while, and then that creates these perfect conditions for this sort of socialist utopia, right? That's their look at it, right?
It's a double blind for the rich to weaken themselves.
Right, exactly. But
Again, I know this for no reason.
they believe that in order to do that, they maximize the party membership, basically opening party membership to pretty much anybody, focusing on unionizing pretty much all the labor, right? That way we have a unified group, right? If you want to quash down one, you got to quash them all.
Mm-hmm.
And then they put a lot of their effort, almost all of their effort, into being elected to the Duma, right? The Duma this is going to happen in 1905, right? The first attempt at a revolution in Russia. Right. And it's basically a super weak ass parliament. So there was a peasant revolt that was damn near overthrew the monarchy. Tsar Nicholas had to flee. Basically, in order to not be overthrown, he had to make some concessions. One of the big concessions was that he would start a parliament so that this was not an absolute monarchy anymore. I'm still in charge, but we'll have a legislative branch, right? When he actually implemented it, they had almost no power.
Right.
So,
but I mean, that's the
usually how it
fucking
goes.
by the book
Exactly.
variation of trying to take power.
Nothing new here.
Trying to take the power through negotiation almost always invariably leads to that exact situation.
Exactly. So, but the Mensheviks were very
Not
focused
promoting
on
anything.
right. The Mensheviks were very focused on let's get as many members into the Duma as possible. Right. That's one way that we can start to chip away at this thing little by little. Right. And I'm skipping a lot in those few years, especially with that 1905 revolution. But another faction within the RSDLP was called the Bolsheviks. They think that the Mensheviks are kind of like a bunch of stupid, naive, dumb, idiot assholes with small, dirty penises, right?
That's the Bolshevik take on the
smelly
Mensheviks?
dicks. it's smelly dicks, tiny balls. They are.
I mean, really, when you break down any socialist revolts, it usually does come down to groups of like, I've got a big shiny wang and you've got tiny stinky balls.
Yeah. So
I mean, back to Rasputin, right?
there you go. That's really it.
yeah.
Get off easy when they pickled that horse cock.
That's it.
Jesus Christ. So they are led by a man named Vladimir Lenin. And Lenin thinks that, no, we need to keep the membership tight and just have like a small group of staunch, convicted, professional revolutionaries.
Yeah.
Right? That's who needs to lead this forward. That's who needs to get the proletariat class sort of riled up. And we don't need a bunch of people in the party calling the shots. Keep this small.
You only need
right? 4.
It's John, Paul, George, and Ringo. They lead the revolution across Abbey Road.
I thought it was Blanco. Paul, George, John, and
Paul,
Blanco.
George, and Blanco. God damn it! If I owned a big corporation like Apple and it was Blanco, I would absolutely have a commercial where Ringo Starr is like, "Nah, I've changed my name to Blanco."
If you could pay for that kind
Yeah,
of
it'd be
advertising,
great.
yeah.
Uncle baby.
Like I said, this is his take on it. Is let's keep this shit tight, right? This is also known as vanguardism, right? This is a Leninist idea, right? Eventually, we start talking about Leninist / Marxist, which is what, while Lenin is in control of Russia for a short period of time, the policies, the philosophy is, right? But yeah, this idea is called vanguardism, and it's the idea that a revolutionary vanguard party composed of the most conscious and disciplined workers has to lead the proletariat in overthrowing capitalism and establishing socialism, ultimately progressing to communism. So you can see there's a little bit of a divide there, right? The Mensheviks want to say, hey, let's have a capitalism for a short period of time. And the Bolsheviks are saying, no. We've got to destroy capitalism and go straight to fucking socialist society and then transition over to communism. Once everything is copacetic, then we're just full communism, right? So Vladimir Lenin wrote about this, and he popularized the idea in his What is to be Done political pamphlet that he printed in 1901. He thinks that the whole capitalist phase of the Menshevik plan is an absolutely shit idea. We need to organize smartly with our tightest boys leading the proletariat, slapping down the monarchy, slapping down capitalism, establishing socialism, eventually transitioning to communism. And sort of at this point, there's already cracks in the line of reasoning, right? I mean, if you look at the Mensheviks, like Riley was saying, what does it benefit if we have a capitalist society for a little bit? What does it benefit the people in the positions of power to go, oh, yeah, now we'll transition to socialism? No.
Nothing. Yeah. The opposite of benefits them, actually.
I'm going to lose my money and so there's already sort of this dichotomy in the way that they're thinking of even achieving what they want in this giant fucking country.
Unfortunately, the only way to appease the bourgeois during a revolution is to execute them, because otherwise you just have dissenters who are used to having power.
Yeah, just look at the French.
Yeah, them and their children, pretty much.
They know how to do a revolution.
Not promoting, not endorsing.
Just stating, you got to
just
get the kids.
You got to get the kids. What are you going to just have oh, my parents were wealthy and I was happy, and then they got executed by these vodka-swilling pig dogs.
Well, so
guess I'll just work in the mines.
So fun fact, if you're a Bolshevik and you're not cool with capitalism, how do you fund your party? Drew, any guesses? How do you fund your shit if you don't have anything? You're depending on the proletariat classes, which is all peasants, and you gotta make money to do this shit, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I got it. You steal it.
I mean, that's how I would do it.
Bank robberies, baby.
I'm fucking good at this game.
So we've got the Mensheviks and the Bolsheviks beefing within the RSDLP. Eventually, the Bolsheviks split and formed their own party.
But I'm sorry. We did reference beefing as a term for female masturbation in a previous episode. So you saying that they were beefing?
They were beefing inside the party headquarters. All of them.
All of them.
The Mensheviks and the Bolsheviks.
That's how they funded it.
Just stinky in there and humid.
Jesus Christ.
What? It only takes one. It only takes one to not take care of that thing, you know?
I'm glad we're not trying to appease.
pH is off, you know?
Is that a Russian? pH is off. This is my friend. Piotr pH is off.
Piotr pH is off. That's fucking awesome.
This is what happens when we're not trying to impress a university.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
God,
exactly.
Is
Yeah,
that
the
what
last
this is?
2 episodes ago, we were talking about fucking university
Is that
smart
why
guy
we're so
bullshit. Here it's all
loosey-goosey?
dick jokes, beanie vagini.
I thought this was going to be like too informational.
If you're listening because you were instructed to listen to the Bretton Woods episode by your college professor and you decided to stick around, welcome.
Welcome.
This
We're
is
talking about beefing it.
Beefing it,
This is
yorking
what
it,
normally is, maybe a little
peeving
bit
and
turned up.
bejeeving.
This might be turned up a little bit higher than what we normally do, but it's pretty much
We got to make up for lost time.
pretty much par for the course. So yeah, like I said, I think the Bolsheviks end up splitting and forming their own party in 1912, I think. Either way, this is before that. And so the boss Bolshevik is Vladimir Lenin, and he's got he's got a cadre of like-minded revolutionaries surrounding him.
They call him the walrus.
Jesus Christ. It was tired the first time you did it. So
I went as VI Lenin for Halloween one year.
mm,
It was great. It was one of my favorite outfits. I just shaved my head and wore a suit.
Jesus.
It's solid.
So Stalin
It
is
just complained about the prices of every place I went. How could proletariat pay for this? $7 beer?
Lenin was a fucking nobleman. He was a bourgeoisie, dude.
I know. I was complaining. I said, how does the
He had money.
proletariat pay for it?
Oh well, he didn't really care.
He had all that record endorsement money.
God damn it. So Stalin isn't really part of the Bolsheviks quite yet. He's strongly Marxist. He's strongly RSDLP. And I mean, he's doing work. He's super involved in organizing these worker strikes and demonstrations. And, one of these little demonstrations of his goes a little off the rails, maybe deliberately so, maybe not. We don't really know. But This demonstration was in Batumi, which is another city in Georgia, and the striking workers ended up storming a prison, ostensibly to free the poor working class serfs within. And the organizers are caught and arrested, and Stalin's one of them, and he's exiled to Siberia.
Oh, cool.
Stalin gets exiled a lot and always seems to escape. Like the number of times he got exiled and escaped is like 5, 6, 7 times. It's crazy.
I love a good gulag escape.
So this is where it sort of begins. So he escapes and he travels back to Tiflis, right? Where he and a friend start co-editing a Marxist newspaper called the Proletariatus Bredzola. The proletariat struggle is what that translates to, right? And while this is going on is when we have this back and forth power struggle between the Mensheviks and the Bolsheviks, right? Within the RSDLP. So Stalin's in the RSDLP. He's just not really affiliated with either of these prior to now. But he's like 25, 26, and he's already garnering some attention from Lenin's group. And it just so happens that he doesn't particularly care for several of the Menshevik activists in Tiflis. Like just on a personal level, he's just like, fuck that guy, right? I'm serious.
He seems like a big fuck that guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
He looked at me wrong. Fuck that
yeah,
asshole.
so because he's doing all this work, because he's sort of like becoming known for being a guy who gets shit done, Lenin and his Bolsheviks are like, that's not a bad guy to have. And Stalin's already like, dude, that guy's a fucking asshole. What? He's in the RSDLP? Oh, he's a Menshevik. That makes sense. You know what I mean? So he ends up going full-blown Bolshevik, right? Got a full-blown case of the Bolsheviks. And I did promise you a bank robbery, and I'm going to give it to you. But so Stalin's back in Tiflis, and he's been organizing multiple robberies and kidnappings as part of this sort of ultra-militant Bolshevik playbook. This, by the way, was like a huge part of the rift between the Mensheviks and the Bolsheviks. In fact, two years before this event we're about to talk about, in 1905, so this is all what I'm about to talk about happens in 1907. In 1905, 1905 is when that first revolution took place. Immediately after the revolution, when Tsar Nicholas comes back and he creates the Duma and all that stuff, the RSDLP has a conference, right? At that juncture, the Mensheviks and the Bolsheviks sort of argued this resolution about whether they should disband the party militias and take a more like politically dignified approach to the revolution, right? Dignified revolution sounds a little weird, but also the Bolsheviks claim to operate on the Leninist political philosophy of democratic centralism, right? Which is, we have a party coalition that votes on what's best for our communist utopia. That involves a very open and vigorous debate where everybody gets to voice their shit, and whatever decision comes out the other end is binding to everyone in the party, right? So they get together in 1905 and they decide by vote, after a heated debate for a long time, they say, we're going to do it this way, right? We're not going to keep robbing banks and doing fucked up shit that kind of, it's like, it's just not the right way to go about it. That's when the Mensheviks are like, we have to focus on getting people in the Duma. We have to, do things a certain way if we want to be taken seriously, right? So imagine after all this debate and the decision that we're ending these terrorist activities, which happens 2 years earlier, in 1907, Lenin, Stalin, and the Bolsheviks are planning a massive bank robbery.
Oh, wow.
So you're already, again, this is what I'm talking about. You're already kind of going against your own political philosophy. If your philosophy is democratic centralism and that we're going to vote, we're going to have this, and whatever we decide, everyone is bound to it. And then 2 years later, they're like, hey. Bank robbery. So as a little bit of background to this, Lenin and Stalin, in spite of being like very different sort of boots in the ground for the Bolsheviks, are both fucking very gang-like criminals in this pre-revolutionary Russia.
Little tough guys.
Yeah.
Cigar chomping, fucking the head smacking with rocks kind of thugs.
Right. I would even argue that we're mid-revolution, not pre-revolution here, but
I guess thug is the wrong word because poets and political activists and stuff like that. But there's definitely an element of like,
Oh God.
I mean, societal dissatisfaction usually breeds a good "I will stab you in the lungs" kind of mentality, you know.
Well, we're gonna get into it right here. So, Lenin is more of, like I said earlier, just like a nobleman background. He's a lawyer and he's an educated intellectual. Stalin is more of an organizer and party unifier, right? He's got this fucking Robin Hood complex. In fact, his code name, his nom de guerre, right, is Koba. Koba is a name he got from the novel The Patricide, which impacted him as a child. He read it. And Koba is the protagonist in this book, who's like this romantic outlaw who fights oppression and injustice.
Mm-hmm.
And so at this point, he's going by Koba. Nobody knows who Stalin is at this point.
He really seems to have some kind of fixation on that idea between the poem that he wrote,
Right. 100%.
and this, like, him
100%.
self-imposing himself on this Koba character.
So right now he's going by Koba. Before that, he was, Joseph de Jugashvili. Stalin is a nickname he came up with around a few years from now, right? Do you know what Stalin means?
I do not.
It comes from the Russian Stal, which means steel. Stalin literally means man of steel.
Wow.
So he's got this fucking complex between the poem of this guy who's like this, he's here for the people and he's here to help and he should be admired. And
But
people should be
are,
showering him with affection. And instead they force him to drink poison and say, we don't need you. And then he goes Koba, who's this oppressed, or this outlaw who's fighting oppression. And then now all of a sudden he's Steel Man,
wow.
like
he likes these fucking little
these
titles.
sort of romantic.
This is a slight digression, but it just occurred to me that where I'd heard the name Koba before. This is funny. What'd you say?
No, I was trying to put my finger on it. I wonder if it's the same thing.
You're thinking Kubo, the
Kubo and the Two Strings
animated.
No, that would be that is cool, but no, actually, this is mildly apropos. The 2014 movie Dawn of the Planet of the Apes.
Yeah.
Okay. So like in that you've got Caesar, who's like leading all the apes, leading the revolution.
Mm-hmm.
This guy Kobo is also a figure in Rise, the first one, so he's like been around.
He's like the wise one, right? Or,
no, Koba is the fucking
dick.
violent dick one that like pushes the teachings of the benevolent Caesar to the side and like just like sparks war and like fucking like pushes to become the leader.
Is he the
instead.
one? Is he the one in the movie previews that did the like the big cheek blow thing? Or was that Caesar?
Possibly.
I distinctly, if we went back and watched that,
it's the one he's got kind of like he's like missing a tooth and he's got like a snaggle tooth,
like a scar, or
kind of
something,
like a dead eye. He looks like trouble, you know. And he is actually really good.
That monkey looks like trouble.
He's played by
Chaboingus.
No, he's fucking really good actually.
Oh no, that was Patreon. Chaboingus is not on our main feed.
Chaboingus is a dolphin. Actually,
he's played by this guy Toby Kebbell. You ever saw Rock and
Rolla? Are you implying that dolphins can't play monkeys in motion pictures?
I'm implying that. Yeah.
Now how many lists are we on?
But he's played by this guy Toby Kebbell, who was he was in Rock and Rolla. If you ever saw Rock and Rolla,
no, nobody knows who Toby Kebbell
was
is.
like
other
the
than
fucking
Toby Kebbell's mom. That's the only person who knows who he is.
Bloodshot with Vin Diesel.
No.
Did you see the Fantastic Four with Miles Teller?
No.
Did you see
No.
any of Toby Kebbell's movies? Anyways,
No.
He's a good actor. But
I just told you, Toby Kebbell and his mom and you are the only three people who know who he is.
In any case, Koba is the one who definitely tries to warp the revolution to gain power.
Awesome.
Those were good movies.
It's pretty obvious that's a direct reference.
You're such a good actor. We're dressing you up as a monkey. Now get in there and be somebody.
Now you get in there and shine, big boy. No, but like it's pretty obvious that they named that
pretty
character.
Obvious they didn't dress them up as monkeys. It was all CGI.
Kinda. They got the hand extensions and stuff in the suits.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, like obviously they use that character as like something referential, referring to like revolt and shit. Like that seems to be a pretty heavy-handed reference.
So yeah, like I said, Dzhugashvili / Koba /
The fuck did you just call me?
/ Stalin, which he adopts somewhere in like 1910, 1912, but we're in 1907 here. Like I said, he's
for a
the
short
guy...
time he was known as Ponyboy Curtis.
He had some friends. I don't remember any of their names.
Soda Pop.
Ralph Macchio.
The Soda Pop, Dallas,
Maverick.
Johnny Cakes.
I'm trying to think of names that they all were in other movies. Trying to think of an Emilio Estevez name from a movie.
Emilio.
Fucking Billy the Kid.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Weird.
Young Guns.
Yeah, I had
William
to
H.
think about that.
Bonney.
Yeah. Anyway, fuck him. So like I said, he's really good at mobilizing people. He's really good at, in addition to other things, inspiring like fervent, unhinged, like borderline psychopathic followers.
Hell yeah.
Right? And both Lenin and Stalin, who are now planning this big bank heist, right? They both have this culture of like self-promoting in a very like cult of personality type way.
That living color cult of personality.
Mm-hmm. Like, damn it, I almost said like Joseph Stalin. Fuck. Like
Joseph Stalin.
Like
Gandhi.
what's the other one though? Like Mussolini.
Mussolini, that's it.
And
Gandhi.
Gandhi? Well, what is he saying? Joseph
Cult
Stalin.
of personality.
Like Joseph Stalin and Gandhi. Then the
No,
next
the
one,
Gandhi is a
like
Gandhi.
Mussolini and
Gandhi.
he doesn't say Gandhi twice.
No, but he says it up, not down.
I don't give a fuck. What does he say with Mussolini?
I don't know. Why don't you look up the lyrics
I'm
to
fucking
Cult of
doing it.
Personalities?
I wouldn't have to
Living
do
Colors
this if you
Cult of
didn't
Personality.
knock me off course. I was on course.
No, you weren't.
I was taking a course at the University of Phoenix. Online.
Oh,
No, their actual camp. Shit. That was a Arrested Development joke.
This says like Mussolini and Kennedy.
Kennedy.
There you
That's
go.
what it is.
Hey, Kennedy.
Yeah, whatever. So, in spite of the monarchy, I'm gonna fucking.
Oh shit, he's got a
Oh
sword
shit,
now.
the katana. Look out, everybody.
You gotta fucking watch out.
We have a sword in the studio now.
Oh God.
You guys might not know this if you haven't been following very closely. I don't think we leak too much of this actually, but in the studio as we've like progressed through the episodes, like sometimes little artifacts regarding the episode will like appear.
Mm-hmm.
Like I got a little box of the P.T. Barnum's grave dirt over here.
Yeah. We got a Night Witch's graphic novel.
Yeah, we got several books. So yeah, and then now we've got a katana,
We've got a
for
katana for
Yasuke.
Yasuke. Yeah. Just gonna keep growing.
Did you use Mozart on the Bretton Woods video?
Yes, I did. We got a
Oh, yeah,
Mozart.
There we go.
Yeah.
Ties it
Hey,
in.
there we go.
We got a portrait of Mozart.
There's a couple other ones here. We got like some books and some shit.
Yeah, all right. So, as I said, both of these guys sort of able to promote themselves. And Russia at this point, in spite of the monarchy, Russian capitalism is seeing like a little bit of a surge at this point, right? Which obviously does not jive well with the Bolsheviks
Mhm.
who want to destroy capitalism. So, and that's how they justify these crimes. And let's be honest, they're like on some straight mob shit.
Oh yeah,
Like this is like how you think of like U.S. crime syndicates.
yeah. The fucking Bolshevik Revolution. The Molotov cocktail comes from the
Yeah, that's
Bolshevik
true.
Revolution.
You're not wrong.
like-
You're not wrong.
And it's not even like the Molotov cocktail people think about. The kind I have tattooed on me
Mhm.
for no reason. I'm not a sympathizer. Anyone listening? But like they think it's just like a bottle of gasoline with some shit. No, the fucking Bolsheviks. They were like, yeah, it's half motor oil, half gasoline. Then you get a long fuse. You've got some wadding and a cherry bomb. Like it's a fucking bomb.
Oh.
Like,
So now we're on a watch list.
I always
You
just-
gave the exact instructions.
I just always assumed it was vodka.
yeah, you would, right? But like, it's supposed to be like any flammable thing in a fire, sure. But like the actual,
Vodka is flammable.
I mean,
Yes.
that's the right proof.
I need rag for inside bottle. Just take,
Yeah, but
just
fucking-
take close. We all wear rags.
But Molotov was a Bolshevik.
So in 1907, there's this planned bank transfer that's going to be passing through Tiflis via stagecoach, right? The value of what's on the stagecoach is around $170,000 1907 money, which would be about $6.5 million today.
Hot damn.
Not a small amount. Stalin informs Lenin about this stagecoach, and he tells him that he wants to plan a robbery to steal the money and use it to fund the revolution, which is their whole fucking thing, right?
Right. Is this in rubles?
I would imagine so, but I know that the value of it in U.S. currency, because I saw an actual cutout from an American newspaper article that said, stagecoach robbery, $170,000 value.
Right. Well, I'm
Whatever it
just
said.
wondering what the standard of the ruble was in that time with the
I believe
the
that
monarchy, or
Yeah.
were they just using like gold? Because we talked to Bretton Woods about the gold standard.
just using gypsy tears, just vials of gypsy tears.
As I bring you the skins of 100 wolves.
No, I believe it was rubles. So, because this is, I mean, we're still in the early 1900s, so it
Paul
wasn't
rubles?
that long ago.
Nothing.
Paul rubles.
No.
Try to backwards P. Wee Herman.
No, I'm not doing anything. Keep going.
No, you didn't like backwards P.
Because it's fucking. I get it. Because fucking Russia, everything's all fucking written backwards. That's funny.
Stupid.
It's Pee-wee.
Still say P. So, fucking hell. So, like I said, Stalin tells Lenin, this is going to happen. I want to rob this fucking stagecoach. We're going to use this to fund the revolution. Like, let go, right? So they get to it, right? And Stalin is like known around here. He's already got like a fervent following. He's a gangster. He's a fucking drifter. He's a criminal. You know, like I said, he dresses in costumes to like evade the police. He's like this.
He's like a character.
He's a character. He's embraced the Robin Hood thing.
Right,
You know
like
what I mean?
He fucks.
He listen. He's got this intense love for like conspiratorial political games. I think he was built for revolution. He wasn't built to be a leader.
That's like his shit. He
was
wants to play the sneaky games. He wants to
Right.
fucking. He wants to be playing the game of fucking
Exactly.
Russian roulette. You know,
he was built to be a revolutionary.
Yeah.
He wasn't built for the aftermath.
Right.
Right. He
as so many are. You know?
100%. 100%. So back to this day in history, right? It's June 26, 1907. Stalin and 19 co-conspirators are gathered around Erivansky Square in Tiflis. They're all dressed in disguises and spread out around the square.
Are they dressed as like American presidents or something?
No, they're mostly dressed like peasants.
Ah, okay.
It's,
Do they
you know,
surf? Never mind.
God damn it. How long have you been waiting for that one?
No, I
You
think
had it so
that was
fast. It's like you
organic.
just pulled it out of your pocket real
I'm
quick.
fucking clever sometimes.
Okay. I know that.
Stalin also sometimes went by the moniker Johnny Utah.
Said, whoa.
It's not like you're landing on land. So Stalin knows exactly when the stagecoach is coming through, as he has infiltrated the bank via two of its employees. He has befriended two of these employees. At least one of these guys says afterward, later when he's asked about it, that he admired Stalin. Why do you think? Why do you think he admired Stalin, Drew, the bank guy?
Because he had a nice dick.
Big,
And Stalin-
sexy mustache.
Stalin banged him real good.
His poetry.
Oh, so yeah, Stalin banged him. Real good. Gay.
He was familiar with the poetry of Sosolo, and he was like, "Oh my God, you're Sosolo!" And so, yeah,
I'll show you some sauce-a-lo. Sausage
Drew was just
load.
fanning himself like he was in the presence of greatness. A saucy load?
But I
Is that
am.
what you said?
Yes, a
Give me
sausage
a saucy
load.
load.
The poetry of sausage load.
So he was able to get like the floor plan of the bank and the times when the shit came in and the shit went out, and like that's how he was able to get the information.
Mhm.
So he's got all of his co-conspirators spread out around the square, all in disguises. Several of them are actually in a local tavern where they were all in disguise, acting normally. But once anybody came in that wasn't part of the robbery, they were prevented from leaving at gunpoint if they tried to leave before
Oh.
the shit went off. Like there were a couple guys by the door that were like, don't leave yet. You stay here. Right? So at around 10:30 a.m., the stagecoach enters the square. One of the lookouts signals that, the rest of the heist squad, and shit pops off, right? Tavern empties, like half the people run out with fucking like pull out guns and run out. Like the people afterward were like, I didn't even know that guy was part of the fucking thing. It just like we heard the signal or whatever, and all of a sudden half the people stood up and ran out the building with guns drawn.
That's exactly the Battle of Lexington, Concord in Massachusetts. Yeah, like the shot heard around the world.
Oh yeah.
Most of the American the revolutionaries were all in a tavern when the British came calling. They all rushed out half drunk.
Hell yeah.
I
That's
have
awesome.
a video on that. I'll upload here pretty soon.
So this stagecoach coming through the square has got 4 men inside of it, 2 armed guards and 2 bank personnel. In front of them are 2 mounted guards, and behind them is a phaeton, which is like it's an open wagon, right? If you think about like the horse carriage rides downtown St. Augustine or around Central Park, right? That's a phaeton.
Phaeton.
open-
Phaetons, those are the things that cause you stress. And you can get them measured with these like 2 like electric steel rods.
I thought it was a laser weapon from Star Trek.
It's also what ran over a young Joseph Stalin. But there's one of those in the back that's full of armed soldiers, right? So as they cross this busy square, Stalin and his little fucking gang attack. They've got pistols and homemade bombs. And the accounts of this attack are fucking wild. So apparently, as soon as they crossed into, like once they were in the center of the square, everything just fucking exploded. This is a busy square. Like there are a fuck ton of people in this square, right? And suddenly there's just gunfire and shit. There's a story of one of the gang members who was a woman grabbing one of these homemade bombs and sliding it underneath, like going to slide it underneath the carriage. Instead, it goes underneath the fucking horses and like just fucking
Obliteration.
viscera and blood and everything. And there's like a horse is completely torn in half and like trying to run with its front legs and like just crazy,
Fucking horse
crazy,
just- Oh my
crazy
God.
shit.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And like I said, the people are obviously just don't know what the fuck's going on.
They're fucking, did that horse just fucking explode?
Well, so like a lot of the people when they talked afterward thought that like it was cannon fire and they didn't even know where the cannon fire was coming from. So they're looking around like, what the fuck? And there's like grenades exploding around them. So it was just absolutely fucking insane. I want to say when the dust settles, 40 people are dead. Just people who happen to be there. I guess there's probably some soldiers and stuff, probably 1 or 2 of the attackers as well. 50 people are injured and the stagecoach is gone.
God damn.
With the money inside of it. Hilarious side note. Just because, not because I don't like cool, bank
Horse
robby
explosions.
shit. If you know me, you know.
There's one thing I like. It's a good horse explosion.
Pretty big on horses exploding. Pretty big on that.
They got gas in them, They go up real good.
So, no, hilarious
They
side
say
note.
nay, I say yay.
Stupid. The bank had a record of the serial numbers of all of these bills.
Oh, shit.
Oh.
And that made it basically impossible to use any of this money.
Oof.
At one point, Lenin came up with a plan that several people were going to try and use the money at the same time, all like in a bunch of different locations. And
Just do it all at once. Boom. Fucking gone.
because they're trying to find like somewhere squishy enough that they can like launder some of this money.
Right.
Pretty much everybody to get arrested.
Fuck.
So they've got the equivalent of $6.5 million and all the fucking collateral damage and all the fucking craziness and planning to get this. Can't use a fucking penny of it.
God damn.
How fucking hilarious is that?
That's rough.
They dropped 40 people for that.
Yeah, and injured 50.
Yeah.
Like-
You know where you got to go? You got to go to a casino. I don't know how many casinos they had back in the
Yeah,
day.
you got to open a car wash. Vladimir Lenin, Jesus Christ. You never opened a wash and fold before? Coin op machines? Come on. So, yeah, Lenin gets this huge cash infusion, not able to use it. Stalin, for his part, flees Tiflis after the robbery and like word of his involvement starts coming out, or at least the suspicion of his involvement. And he never returns to Tiflis again in his lifetime. This is where he grew up. Never comes back.
He robbed a bank in his hometown?
Tiflis is right now. He's from Gori, but it's right there. Yeah, it's like not very far away. I can't remember how many miles. Basically, yeah. So as the details of this robbery start to surface, the Bolsheviks also realize that they've got a fucking issue too, right? Because they're not exactly down with this. Lenin isn't the only leader in the Bolshevik party, right? Which isn't even its own party. It's still part of the RSDLP right now. Right? These guys are trying to, like we talked about before, they're going back and forth with the Mensheviks on what the future of this revolution is going to be and yada, yada, yada. Lenin's not the only guy in charge here. They had all agreed to stop doing this bullshit, and they find out as the details of this start coming out that Stalin is very much involved and perhaps Lenin is very much involved. So they've got this big fucking problem too, which is, we're supposed to, once we decided this shit, like This is the way that this government's supposed to work. We debated, we voted, we're all bound to this, and you fucked it up. That's why I was bringing that up earlier. So yeah, not all of them are quite as comfortable as Lenin is with these like clandestine political crimes.
Yeah, not everybody's a fucking swaggering, fucking poof-haired little warrior poet.
Well, I mean, listen, a lot of them respect the ruling that they just agreed to 2 years ago
through Russia, Georgia.
Yeah, well, so as these other Bolshevik leaders find out that this whole thing was masterminded by Stalin, they boot him from the RSDLP. He's subject to multiple investigations. His political ambitions are nearly ruined. I mean, at that point, he thought for sure ruined. He manages to pull himself out of the shit heap. But he spent a lot of his life trying to chase down every bit of anything leaking him to this attack and erasing it, like once he gets into a position of power.
Dang.
Yeah. But Stalin is not done. He reassembles the gang almost immediately in Azerbaijan. And he keeps fucking doing the thing. I think for him, for sure, I think the revolution's already kind of in progress. I think for Stalin, the revolution was already 100% in progress, right? Because there's no slowing him down, right? So they're in Baku, which is a city in Azerbaijan.
Also a character in My Hero Academia.
That is true.
It's an anime, Drew. Get with it.
Baku, Baku.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I don't care.
Yeah. Anyway, so he's in Baku, Azerbaijan for a little less than a year, busy with, robberies, counterfeiting, racketeering,
Any gangster shit he can get his fucking
kidnapping
hands
and
on.
ransoming wealthy people's children, paying the bills, baby. He's paying the fucking Bolsheviks' bills. He ends up arrested and exiled to northern Russia for a second time.
Classic.
In March of 1908. So not even a year after this robbery went down, the Tiflis robbery went down, right? He basically spends the next several years in and out of exile. So he keeps sort of going. He gets exiled up to like not Siberia, but somewhere else up in northern Russia. And he escapes like 3-4 months later. And then he goes to, I think St. Petersburg at one point, and he gets caught, and then he gets sent back over, and then he escapes somewhere else, and then he gets caught, and then he gets sent back over, and then after a couple months, he asks if he can go to this different city, and they say, okay, yeah, you can go to this different city, but to be exiled in a different city, and then he escapes, and then he gets caught. It's like the back and forth.
Being exiled in Siberia is shit.
Yeah.
You exile in the other place.
Yeah,
and then this whole time,
send me to St. Petersburg.
this whole time, he keeps thinking like, man, exile just doesn't work. There's got to be some other solution for when I'm tired of someone.
Do you know how few people I can kidnap and ransom while I'm in exile, guys?
Dude, there's like no banks to rob in Siberia.
Look around, nothing. Not a bank in sight.
When I'm the boss, we'll stop with all this exiling. Figure out some other solution.
Fuck. So, like I said, for the next several years, from like 1908 to 1912, he is in and out of exile, escaping, getting sent back, escaping, getting arrested, sent back over and over and over. In 1912, he ends up escaping at one point and goes to St. Petersburg, Florida.
Goes to the Dali Museum.
Yeah, I've been there. So he's run away from exile for a good reason this time. We know what the reason is this time. The Bolshevik Party has legitimately organized now. They have left the RSDLP. They are the Bolshevik Party. And they have co-opted him into the party's leadership, right? Even though he's in exile, they've written him into the party's
They're
leadership.
like, this guy is the real deal.
Yeah.
So he kidnaps and murders.
Vladimir
He does the whole shit.
Lenin, when he was setting up this organization, said Joseph Stalin's going to be part of our leadership, right?
This guy's got the goods. He'll blow your horse up.
Yeah, so Stalin's got to get to St. Petersburg and, get to work, which he does. He does the one non-criminal job where he's had any sort of success, which we didn't brush on earlier, but is the press. When he was younger, he worked for a short time for a newspaper. Yeah. Yeah. So whenever he first left the seminary and first started organizing, when I was talking about him organizing like worker strikes and demonstrations and stuff like that, that was off the back of a newspaper that he worked at in Tiflis.
Okay.
So he gets back to doing the one non-criminal thing that he's ever been good at, which is working in the press. So he starts editing in secret. He's run from exile, so he's nobody's supposed to know he's there. So editing in secret, he turns the local Bolshevik newspaper in St. Petersburg into a daily paper and renames it from Zvezda, which means star, to Pravda, which is truth. So, I mean, interesting. If you know anything about Stalin's like control of the media when he became leader of Russia, like this background, the name change, everything makes like so much sense. Like this is where he got his training for it, you know? Well, we're going to rename it from star to truth. And I'm going to edit this. And it's not coming out every week. It's coming out every day.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Like,
it's a Bolshevik paper.
I think of the beauty of a propagandist newspaper called Truth.
Oh, yeah.
That comes out every day. It's like, what do you mean you don't believe it? It's the truth.
I could make some points there, but I'm just not. Some more appropriate to modern day.
What do you mean? Is there something
It's
going
come
on?
up a couple times.
I know.
We were talking about something earlier, or something about cult of personality.
Something going on? I don't understand.
No.
Is there something in the modern day that could be equated to something like this, the Bolshevik issue?
Yeah, did you know they're remaking the Goonies?
I did hear about
This
that.
is all just a metaphor for that.
That's a fucking travesty.
I mean, who gives a shit? Nostalgia's over. Nothing exists.
He's such a dumb asshole.
The only one who's right. It's a huge burden.
You know who that sounds like?
What?
Me? Nihilism?
No, you know what's funny is he's like
Arthur Schopenhauer?
one of the sweetest, most nostalgic boys in
I'm
the
not.
land. Yes, he is. Yes,
Not
you
true
are.
at all.
Yes, you are.
I'm a hard-edged
There's-
nihilist.
Okay.
I'm a social activist,
mhm,
you know? I
mhm.
carry weapons with me constantly. I'm always ready to break legs.
This guy does sword lessons.
I do sword lessons. I learn how to kill. See, I actually don't have a knife on me right now.
I don't either. Fuck.
I usually
I got a knife and a katana.
Oh, I got my boken here. I can fuck you up with this thing.
Well, I mean,
Hiya!
mine's a little more pointy, but
That's fucking still get you good. You know who'd be afraid of this thing? Vampires. Fuck, take that, Dracula.
with their squishy chests. So yeah, like I said, this is very much like you kind of go, okay, this makes a lot of sense that this guy was so good at manipulating the people via press once he became the party leader. So
I didn't know about that background that he was a part of the press.
yeah.
prior to.
And at this point,
I didn't know a lot of this.
And at this point, like from this point, it pretty much is nonstop until he ends up, in power, or at least part of being in power once the Bolshevik Revolution takes off. So this him co-editing this newspaper in secret lasts for a few months before he's found again, arrested again, exiled again for a few months, escapes again, returns to St. Petersburg, and secretly starts running this paper again. So over the next few years, the Bolsheviks sort of gain more and more support. Stalin and Lenin don't necessarily see eye to eye on everything. Like at one point, Stalin suggests mending the relationship with the Mensheviks and reuniting under the same banner, which Lenin is not down for. And Lenin recognized that he was more of a revolutionary than a leader. A lot of what held Stalin back in the eyes of some of the other leaders in the party was that he wasn't educated, really. He went to a Russian Orthodox school. He went to a seminary, and then he got kicked out or quit, and then that was it. And then he started doing crimes, so like
Classic.
and he's good at that, but it's like
that a leader does not make, though.
yeah, you don't make your best henchman.
Why did you elect this guy leader? Oh, he's real good at blowing up horses.
Yeah. You don't make your best henchman the leader of the party when you die. That's not typically how that goes.
I mean, no, but traditionally you just elect your insane son or something, and
Right.
has a million people
Yeah, your little
executed.
Piece of shit fucking
Yeah, and he's like, I shall
entitled kid.
feed them to the bears for
Yeah.
my entertainment. And Russia's no exception. There's plenty of that
Yeah.
shit in there.
I want to watch the dogs pull them apart, Papa. I just think about the kid in in Game of Thrones.
Joffrey.
I want to watch him
Make
fly.
the bad man fly.
Yeah.
Robin Aaron.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Robin Aaron. Make the bad man fly.
Who I think,
Stupid.
God, that show got so fucked up where he's like
I think
the.
he's the king, isn't he? Is he the thing?
No, that's fucking Bran, and that was stupid too.
Oh,
but
spoiler alert! Goddamn.
It's been over for like 6 years. Fuck you.
I'm just joking.
Okay.
More than
No,
6, I think.
Yeah, something like that. How fucking disappointing. I don't want to talk about this anymore.
Poor guy. It's
I
been
wanna
over
go-
for
I want
like,
to go home.
it's got to be close to 10 years it's been over. But anyway, so Lenin recognized that he was more of a revolutionary than a leader, but Stalin's also done a lot of fucking legwork. You know what I mean? Not only for the Bolshevik movement, but also like to cement himself as a major figurehead within the movement. He's got fucking followers.
Mhm.
Stalin has followers.
We gotta talk
What?
real quick about the Game of Thrones thing. The HBO series Game of Thrones concluded on May 19th, 2019, 6 years to the day, motherfucker.
Are you serious?
Wow.
Dead serious.
6 years ago today?
Today.
Wow.
Wow. Is that right?
That's a fucking special moment. I don't know what happened just then, but I'm starting to lean into the whole simulation thing.
See?
Holy shit.
Fucking hacked in for a
Yeah.
sec.
Wow, Pat, you're a dumb asshole.
That was never
I'm sorry for interrupting you, but
turns out, Drew rules and you drool.
10 years.
I don't know what to say. Congratulations on all your success.
That's it. Wrap it up. We're done. We're done here. The
No,
episode's
please get
over.
back to Stalin. I had to share that because I thought it was pretty remarkable.
So, like I said, Stalin's done a ton of legwork to cement himself. You know, he's got a shit ton of followers. Like I said earlier, he's got fervent, hardcore followers. And he has, you know, effectively cemented himself as somebody, maybe not at the top of this movement, but certainly just below that. So we're going to fast forward a little bit to 1917, right? We've got Stalin, we've got Lenin, they're doing things, everything's great, some fucking weird cult of personality shit. They're both larger than life guys who have been fucking fighting the good fight as far as what they're, you know, what most of the people in Russia think. So 1917 is a pretty significant year in Russian history. They've been fighting World War I for 3 years at this point. They went into the war in 1914. They aren't really doing a top-notch job on the war front, and there's like this huge depletion of morale countrywide. You know, the majority of the country is peasant, right? That whole population is helping to fill the war ranks. Those people are dying because they're losing battle after battle after battle. So that affects the whole fucking country. And on top of that, there's like widespread hunger and starvation. There's a monarchy still in place who's literally just ignoring the problem. They're not even talking about it. They're not trying to do anything about it. They're just like, I don't know.
This particular period in Russian history is like renowned for being one of the greatest inspirations for some of the greatest like literature of all time, because it's just so fucking predominantly bleak and horrifying.
Yeah,
So I look at like Crime and Punishment. You know, it's like the
Mhm.
whole thing is like good people driven to murder in this particular time
well,
period.
and that's what happens. This whole thing finally comes to a fucking head. In February of 1916, protests start in St. Petersburg with the poor classes having basically just had enough, right? It was so bad that it wasn't just the peasants. The soldiers are fucking protesting. There are parts of the bourgeoisie class. The police are all protesting. So Tsar Nicholas knows he's got to step down. He's got to cede power to someone else. And he does that the following month in March of 1917. So initially a provincial government takes over from the Duma, right? Just basically comprised of all the different political parties that previously represented this very ineffectual branch of Russian legislation. Ineffectual by design, not necessarily because of incompetence, but because the monarchy had them on a leash. So suddenly these guys are in charge. They say, okay, we're going to have democratic elections, right? Now they're in charge, even though they were they were a concession 12 years ago,
right,
from the Tsar before, in order for him not to be overthrown. And they haven't been able to do much of fucking shit for 12 years. And now all of a sudden they're in charge and they're like, okay, we're going to do an election, I guess. So everybody just calm down. We're going to have an election. So they take over with this plan, and they also form a workers' council, quote unquote, also known as a Soviet. which they make a co-equal. They make the workers' council co-equal with the provincial government, right? In spite of all that, Russia descends into civil war.
What? Even despite the workers' council?
Well, despite the czar stepping down and the things sort of changing, we're still jumping into fucking civil war. So
I think sometimes in history, when shit gets too confusing, it becomes like a snake biting its own tail sort of thing. It's like, well, then I don't know what the fuck any of this means, so I'm gonna civil war on you. Fuck you.
I'm gonna civil war on you.
Yeah, fucking jihad on you, dude. I'm fucking. I don't know who's in charge, and I don't give a fuck. Fuck you.
Yeah. So then Lenin came out and he said, "What's so civil about war?" And
I
then that was
don't
the end.
need no civil war.
That was my best John Lennon impression, and you just let it die.
What do you mean?
Die on the stage.
What's so civil about war anyway? Is a quote from Guns N' Roses' "Civil War."
Right, I know.
What's so civil about war anyway? What we have here is a failure to communicate. All right, go ahead.
We have the worst episode we've ever done.
You say that about every episode.
Yeah,
I
you really
say
do.
that. I really do. I say it all the time. This is the worst episode, guys. Keep listening. Fucking hell.
I'm gonna cut that and put it at the beginning.
I mean, if you want, I can jump in with some stuff.
So, no, we descend into civil war. This is like stoked in large part by Vladimir Lenin and the Bolshevik Party, who basically they rally the peasantry around their philosophies, and they convince them that the provincial government cannot, and will not represent the majority of the people in this country. So
They don't love you like we do.
right, basically. So the peasants start seizing land and taking over factories. World War II is still ongoing, but you've got soldiers abandoning their posts to take part. Did I say two?
You said two.
My bad. World War I is still ongoing. So, but you've got soldiers abandoning their posts to like come back and take part in this revolution. And the provincial government tries to crack down hard on people, but that just makes it fucking worse. So they go after the Bolsheviks, and Stalin is still putting out Pravda, the fucking truth newspaper, the Bolshevik newspaper. He's still putting that out. He's still putting issues on that. And the government will like find their offices and go in there and try and arrest everybody. And they'll like narrowly escape. And then they'll find a new place and start fucking printing the newspapers there. And then like, it's this big, crazy fucking thing. And like the provincial government's just adding fuel to the fire, and the Bolsheviks are just adding fuel to the fire. And the thing is just getting like more and more like, just when you think the top can't pop off any further, it's still popping. You know what I mean?
Can I say, this sounds like the best time in Stalin's life. This seems like everything
Probably.
that he wanted,
Yeah.
everything he was like about.
Probably.
You know, he fucking loves this shit.
Well, so at one point,
Every time the Gestapo or whatever is stomping in the door, he's like, "Ha, grab the shit and run."
At one point, the government police almost catch Stalin and Lenin both in the papers, like the newspapers' offices, and Stalin has to maneuver Lenin out and like get him to safety. And like basically from that point forward, he considers himself like Lenin's protector. Like he's like, nobody, like I got him out.
Yeah,
He was almost
at the
there.
very least, it like puts him in that position at the end that he can grab, that puts him right, like not in the seat of power per se, but close enough.
Right there. I mean, he's still got to do some more things.
There's
but
that main character syndrome again.
yeah,
That's what
Yeah.
he's got. He's
100%.
Yeah.
This is you're right. This is like Stalin is absolutely all about this fucking like revolution.
Yeah, that's
shit,
his
you know what I
shit.
mean? Like, yeah. So
he's got like a real Che Guevara vibe in a very
Yeah.
different sense. Like
Yeah.
like Che Guevara was like heavily educated and shit, and like you definitely got it. We're gonna do an episode.
we're gonna
on
do
him
a Che
eventually,
Guevara for sure.
Yeah, but like his thing was after his revolution in Cuba, he was like, I'm gonna go do more revolutions.
Yeah, I'm
Because
going to
I'm not
Central
fucking.
America,
He's like,
motherfucker.
I'll have these people executed. I'll hang out for a little bit,
Yeah.
and then I'm fucking off to go do more of this shit. Because
Yeah.
that's
That
my
was his
vibe.
shit,
That's
yeah.
his whole thing.
So I think you're dead on with Stalin. Like this is 100% what he was built for.
Yeah, and revolutionaries like that, if we have any insight into the thought process therein, coming out of conflict like that and actually into a place of stability where like legislation and rules are being made, are almost always extremely violent and like uncompromising in their fucking distribution of punishments and fucking
Oh, for sure.
shit like that.
Yeah. So this whole fucking thing in 1917 is absolutely chaos for months. But Lenin sees an opportunity here amidst all this fucking mayhem and disarray to seize power. So on October 26th of 1917, the Bolsheviks stormed the government building, the Winter Palace. They seize control, and Lenin declares himself to be the chairman of Russia.
He's mine now.
And that power is not going to be shared with the other political
He
parties.
said, I believe his words were, I have a chair, king in the castle.
King of the castle. But the other thing is like, so this provincial government was all the different political parties from the Duma, right? Lenin takes this shit and goes, no, we're not, nobody else gets to be part of it. The Bolsheviks are in control now. The Bolshevik party, soon to be the Russian Communist Party, and their new government, which they form right then and there, the Council of People's Commissars. I want to sing that song.
What?
Don't turn around, you find the commissars in town,
That was good.
I never knew that's what they said.
Yeah. I think
Is that the Cars?
no, that was some like one-hit wonder band. I think it's even called Der Kommissar.
Gary Newman? What?
I think I'm referencing the wrong song. It says Ace of Base. I don't think that's true.
That's don't turn around,
Yeah.
cause you're gonna see my heart breaking. Don't walk away. It's I think it's called Dirk Commissar.
Yeah, after the fire, Der
Song
Kommissar.
by
Yeah.
the band Falco.
It was Falco. Holy shit.
Okay,
Okay. That's as much as we can play.
Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba.
Hey!
Don't
turn around. Oh.
The commissars in town. So anyway, they form their new government, the Council of People's Commissars, and they are fully in charge and in control. So now we've got a world war happening, an intensifying civil war that will continue for another 4 years, and 2 new governments inside of a fucking year. And this one basically immediately starts cracking down on everything in order to sort of, I guess, achieve their communist dream. So Stalin is one of the leaders of this new Russian order. Him, Leon Trotsky, Yakov Sverdlov, who is where Yakov Smirnov was named after. They are right there with Lenin.
In Soviet Russia, People's Commissar counsel you.
Oh my God. So they shut down newspapers that are critical of them. They established the Cheka, which is a Bolshevik secret police organization whose primary purpose was to repress and execute political dissidents, which is super fun stuff. Look up the Red Terror. That was the Cheka.
Red Terror, that's cool. Cool name for a supervillain.
Yeah.
So
You should trademark that.
So did the
with Stalinism.
Did the council also like lay out some plans for like how they were going to use national resources and stuff like that?
We're getting to it.
Because it sounds a lot like, I don't know, any military dictatorship that's ever taken over anything ever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The Cheka was the secret police that just started rounding people up, arresting them, and fucking editing them.
I mean,
kind of slip was that?
I was looking at you having the hardest time
that's actually
of your life.
If I was gonna write like a dystopian, like fascist future that I don't live in, then I would actually have that be some like future speak, because like they will be edited.
Yeah.
That needs to go on the Delete Everything movie.
That's not bad. That's not bad.
This all brings to mind, as we move forward here, the George Orwell quote, "He who controls the past controls the future," because once Vladimir Lenin dies and Joseph Stalin takes over, that shit gets fucking turned up to 11.
Oh yeah.
So we're going to fast forward to that. So we're going to 1922, right?
Mm-hmm.
By the way, through a lot of fuckery. But,
Yeah.
It's already, again, we've got to do this in one episode.
We're bouncing
it's already
out. We're bouncing
long.
out like 10 years past through that, just endless
5 years.
fuckery.
5 years.
Yeah, that quote reminds me a lot of a quote that I've attributed to the Crime Think Ex-Workers Collective. There's a organization that I've never been affiliated with, but it's people that learn history are doomed to repeat it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I use that one a lot.
Yeah.
So, like I said, a lot of fuckery happens in those 5 years, but the Civil War is over. But honestly, thanks in large part to Stalin and Trotsky's battle plans throughout like Russian territory, they get sent out to a lot of places and sort of tamp down this civil war. But Vlad Lenin dies anyway. So The unofficial cause of death was, quote, an incurable disease of the blood vessels. He probably stroked out and fell into a coma. He had 3 strokes previously and was like house ridden for like the last year of his life. He had a pretty massive heart attack that left him at least partially paralyzed. So he was just house ridden with his wife taking care of him. And Stalin was sort of his go-to guy. And so Stalin was keeping a lot of shit from him. And also telling the other higher ups not to inform him of things.
You don't want to bother him. He's sick.
Under this guise of, you know, we've got to preserve his health. This is like, don't stress him with that. We've got to preserve his health. We're in charge now. Like, don't stress him with that. Right.
Because Lenin still in Russia is like deified.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
He's the ultimate penultimate leader and genius.
Because he didn't have enough time to fuck shit up like Stalin.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right. He only had a few years.
He's fucking late in state still. You can go see his body right now.
Yeah. I think they switched it with a
mummy.
Not like a
doll thing. There was for a long time his body being preserved was a fucking modern marvel. People
which was Stalin's decision, which went against Lenin's wishes.
Oof.
Yeah. They Stalin pulled some fuck shit after Lenin died. So we don't know exactly who Lenin wanted to take over as chairman. He had written what's that? Paul.
I thought it was George.
George, no.
George didn't want that shit.
George wanted to just.
Lenin didn't want Paul to take over though. Come on.
Well, yeah, no, they hated each other, but whatever.
I don't think they hated each other.
Who's gonna do it? Ringo? Give me a fucking break. Everyone knows Ringo's an idiot.
All-star band, man.
Ringo's gonna be the last man standing.
Probably. Yeah, he'll have the last laugh.
Yeah,
probably. So Lenin had written like some letters that were pretty critical of Trotsky and Stalin both. They were kind of like the shoo-ins to be the next guys in charge. There were 2 other guys. I didn't write their names down. I'm sure they're very, very important in Russian history. They're not as important to this because they almost immediately got sort of trounced by Stalin in terms of public sentiment.
Trotsky, very, very popular guy. Handsome, good-looking, softer revolutionary, not much of a hands-on guy, more of an intellectual like Lenin.
Right. And he
even adopted Lenin's facial hair, essentially.
Yeah, and he had some views that kind of it gave Stalin enough ammo to also sort of demonize him within the party and within sort of this proletariat class, where Stalin was very, very good at getting people to sort of deify him. You know what I mean? In classic fucking authoritarian fashion. You know what I mean?
Authoritarian strongman. Who'd think it?
Yeah, right. So,
not that I have any experience living in any sort of situation like that.
The general consensus is that he would have preferred Trotsky. In fact, one of his final letters to the party that Stalin managed to intercept before they could get it suggested that this is Lenin, suggested that Stalin was too intolerably cruel and authoritarian for the job and should be ousted from his leadership role within the party. He was basically saying, like, we can deal with Stalin, but he's too much. He's just too much. You guys should look to like replace him with somebody who's a little bit better, you know?
More level-headed.
A little less murdery.
And so
just nicer and not as much of a brutal dictator kind of guy.
Well, so Stalin intercepts...
Doesn't write shitty poetry.
And not such a fucking poet dickhead.
Stalin intercepts this letter and fucking buries it. Because if it had ever gotten out, he would have probably been forced to resign from his role and been kicked out of the party.
He's like, no, Joe, no, go.
Yeah, he would have. His political career would have ended right there. So instead, through a series of not giving a fuck about Lenin's final wishes or the wishes of his very much still alive widow, he usurps the plans for Lenin's funeral, and he makes it very much about him and how much Lenin was like just big homie, and you know he sort of just usurps the powers of control.
That's just a fucking abusive wife shit.
Yeah.
You know, like fucking hijack somebody's funeral, make it all about you.
Yeah.
Fuck.
So what was Russia like under Stalinism? Probably a decent amount of people already know the answer.
Bad, rough.
Yeah. He kept
cold vodka.
Like I said at the top, he kept Russia pretty shielded from the rest of the world, at least from the like fucked up authoritarian shit and human atrocities and stuff. For like the 20 years between assuming power and World War II, when everything was sort of bared for the world to see, because you've got now Russian soldiers going to different parts of the world, all throughout Europe, getting things that they had never been able to get before There are
What's
cameras.
this water?
Yeah, there are cameras now. You know, there's video footage. There are reporters taking pictures and video. No shit, like the stuff that they would come back from the war front, and Stalin set up like, can't remember what they called them, but you know, like when a soldier comes back from war, they've got to be debriefed. So they would do that, but also basically take anything that they were bringing back with them before they could bring it into the country and show people, you know, inside of Russia, like, oh, look what I've got, you know, and I can't think of any specific example, but
Cocaine, dildos.
Yeah, methamphetamines that they got from the Germans. Oh, check it out.
Das is good.
Check it out. It's very good. You can drink vodka all night.
They have vodka out there. Doesn't burn when you drink. You just feel good, feel healthy.
So
They call it water.
Water. Yeah, he's very much like, oh, and by the way, a lot of those soldiers, after they came back from the war, were sent to the fucking gulag.
Yeah, like you do.
Like, thanks for fighting so hard.
They're like, France seems really nice. They have bread all over. No cold, no beatings.
Have you heard of this ocean? It's crazy, man.
But yeah, so I mean, so as far as within Russia, firstly, grip on the media of any kind was fucking iron, dude. Not only the news, books, music, anything that wasn't expressly approved by the party could likely get you into a lot of trouble. In fact, Stalin's personality cult was so ingrained that a lot of the poetry, stories, music, and artwork of the time became centered around him.
You will only listen to Joseph Stalin poetry.
My Christmas album. Listen.
Big Joe sings the hits of his new album.
Limited special run with extra bonus tracks.
Borscht After Midnight with the Moscow Boys Choir.
So it was all the poetry and books.
Big Joe sings. What, no vodka?
I always feel like somebody's watching me. I ain't got no privacy. Whoa.
Turn around. Every now and then I get a little bit lonely.
I like how he's singing all these songs that came out 30 years after he died.
Big Joe sings the hits.
I'm going to rock with you all night.
Yeah, like I said, all this poetry and books and music were like all centered around how cunning and handsome and strong and effective he was. Obviously, most of that bullshit, but it served the purpose of making him happy. And by the way, just so everyone was on the same page, there were like rules about how to depict him properly in order to properly glorify him. That's why all the like big murals and stuff, he's always wearing the white suit.
Oh, yeah.
That was like a government decree. If you're going to paint Stalin, you paint him in a white suit.
Damn.
And nobody else can be in white. So that he fucking sticks out.
We want everyone in the country to know he's tacky and wears bullshit. Yeah. White suit.
So, some soldier comes back from France and he's like, hey, after Labor Day, that's a no-no. I was just in the fashion capital of the world. Bah, gulag.
Damn.
But yeah, so a great example of how he went about censoring books. Remember that robbery in Tiflis in 1907?
The horse explosion.
Yeah. One of the guys who was central to planning it with him was arrested and, you know, had a whole life and shit while all this is going on. At one point, he wrote his memoirs and obviously implements Stalin in the robbery as well as assassinations and other petty crimes. Those pages completely disappear from the memoir. Like even today, it's hard to find an uncensored version that hasn't been doctored to take Stalin out and not implicate him. Because remember, that almost sunk his political career. So that was one of the first things he went after was like, I got to get this shit to disappear because if people find out that I did that and just blew up fucking 40 innocent people to rob money that we couldn't even use.
It's like, cross out innocent and write bourgeois.
So another thing Stalin makes sure is covered, education, completely controlled by the government. Exams were pulled and rewritten. Books were pulled and rewritten. Particularly history books were written to overplay his relationship with Lenin. Kids had to join youth organizations so that they could learn how to be good communists.
Yeah.
A ton of churches are shut down by the state. For one, Stalin, formerly a fucking priest in training, believes Marx's assertion that religion is the opiate of the masses. For two, in a true cult of personality, there isn't room for anybody to worship anyone or anything other than the leader, right? So he's like, no more of this church. For three, the churches are very ornate and have a lot of riches and things that, we need to have. You don't need
the
to
Russian
have
Orthodox
that.
Church
The state needs that.
filtered put a lot of stuff into making them things. Those churches are super
Yeah.
cool.
So there's, on top of that, there's farming collectives. That's what you were talking about, the resources in the country. So everybody who had farmland, which is most of the peasant class, entered a farming collective where the state took all of the stuff and divvied it out so that everybody had equal portions. The problem is that Stalin wanted to industrialize Russia to keep up with the rest of the world. So he wanted to export, because Russia's not making a lot.
Right.
He wanted to export as much, grain and shit as possible so that he made more money so that he could pay to industrialize Russia.
Right.
So as a consequence, people didn't have enough fucking food, which led to multiple famines. A really bad one in Ukraine, which arguably, because they weren't, what's the word I'm looking for? They weren't Russian proper.
Incorporated.
They weren't actual Russians. Well, they were part of the Soviet Union, but they weren't actual Russians.
So you're saying
The general thought is that he just let it happen. He was just like, oh, whatever. Ukrainians can die.
Right, yeah.
you're saying a political leader made the effort to line their own pockets and disrupt the domestic supply chain, putting his own citizens at risk for starvation and
In order for
general unrest.
In order for him to, he certainly was richer than the average.
Who does that?
No idea.
Unheard of.
So another way, how do we industrialize? We can't pay for all that. We're trying to make money here, right? Gulags.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
anybody who's put a fucking toe out of line, if you weren't executed, mostly the only people who we executed were, at least right away.
Sick, the handicapped,
were-
anyone who didn't seem like they could wield a hammer.
Well, also anybody who was a political threat.
Um.
Anybody who was an intellectual, including authors, poets, musicians, anybody who was not, quote unquote, a good communist, fucking shot out back. And if you were just not doing things right, you go to the fucking gulag.
No.
And if you put a toe out of line there, then you get shot there.
Yeah.
Right? That's why I said, how many people was it? It was like 8.5 million that ended up going to gulags. And like 10% of them, 800,000, ended up with a fucking bullet.
A lot of dumpsters in that country.
So 1 out of 10 people fucking shot, right? It also turned into a telling society, right? This is a very big thing in Russia, was neighbors telling on other neighbors, this sort of secret police that would come around and be like, tell us if someone is not being good communist, right? Which ended up fucking neighbors who didn't like their neighbors or wanted their land or wanted their whatever.
Yeah, this is like most famously illustrated in the story of Mr. Tumnus turning in Lucy the human girl to the Ice Queen,
In Narnia?
Yeah, that's in Russia, right? A lot of snow.
Yeah, I think so.
You got a Father
Jesus
Christmas,
Christ. Maybe.
So
the telling society was a bad one. The purges, the fucking the Great Purge, where literally anybody who was a political rival fucking killed. So many of the people who got Stalin where he was, people in his own party, if he even thought that they were in a position where they might get the favor of the rest of the people in Russia and he might be ousted in favor of this other person.
Oh, this is
gone.
This is the Goodfellas montage moment of his his rise, where they're playing like Layla and just like fucking scanning past like meat trucks and you got the guys hanging in there.
Yeah.
Like this person's getting shot out behind a bar.
For real. You want to hear a fucking crazy quote by Stalin? Should I do it in a Russian accent?
Yes.
Of course.
If one man dies, that's a tragedy. If millions die, that's a statistic.
Ooh.
Not what you want to hear from the person leading your country. If one man dies, that's a tragedy. If millions die, that's a statistic.
I mean, he's not necessarily wrong.
He's not
That's
wrong,
a
but that's
cold-blooded
not-
way to look
yeah.
at stuff, but like it's once you have an entire society wiped out, like only the people that were in that society are going to care that much, you know?
I mean, on the other hand, he did industrialize Russia. If you were a good communist, there's no doubt about it. You were better off under Stalin. So,
If you figure if you're killing 1 million people in a country, the emotional and like spiritual toll of that on the populace is very apparent. It makes your whole populace very cold-blooded, very disparate from each other. They probably won't make close connections. Just like the sheer number of people will like disrupt the the 6th degree of Kevin Bacon sort of thing that everyone has with each other. If
yeah, I mean, so back to where we started though. Who's worse, Hitler or Stalin?
Hitler.
Hitler is worse, even though Hitler killed fewer people.
Right.
So the general
Hitler didn't fucking stand for anything.
what we think is that Hitler was probably responsible for somewhere between like 9 and 12 million deaths.
Yeah.
Stalin was responsible for like 11 to 16 million.
That's a fuckload of people.
Yeah. So the difference, and this is why I was talking about the context in the beginning, is that the way you do it is a little bit
Intention it means a lot.
Yeah, is a little bit. So
Hitler's take on like, hey, let's put these people into special death camps and make them dead now.
yeah,
Is a little more intentionally.
Hitler did it over a lot smaller of a time frame.
Yeah, it's a little more intentionally cold-blooded than just
did
like
it much more
don't feed
intentionally.
them and then the
Yeah.
people that fuck with
Right,
us shoot
yeah,
them.
yeah.
You know?
Right. So
There's a they're both terrible. They're
A
both
lot
terrible.
of
I'm not fucking.
right.
I'm not apologizing for Stalin. He was a fucking monster.
a
But
lot of the people who died under Stalin were Civil War, casualties. Yeah, World War II casualties.
also just a lot of
Um,
neglect. Just fucking
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Gulag casualties who were not necessarily fodder, but it was kind of like, who cares? Famine casualties who were not necessarily kill them, but
Yeah, World War II.
it was
highest-
ambivalence.
Russia has the highest number of casualties in World War II.
Yep.
Because of that sort
Right.
of like indifference and ambivalence, like with the St. Petersburg, Stalingrad.
Yeah.
The Battle of Stalingrad famously was like you push the soldiers forward. If they retreat, you shoot them.
You shoot them, yeah.
And so like just like that was the highest
100%.
single casualty rate in any battle because they were just going to take the city of Stalingrad just by
The Russians,
pure force of numbers.
The Russians and the Japanese were the only ones in World War II who had a do not retreat or you are a fucking traitor and you will die.
Yeah.
Either by their hands or ours. So make us proud. But yeah, so I mean, Stalin, again, there was a lot of ambivalence and a lot of not just giving a shit. He wasn't a good leader. He made a lot of real fucking stupid calls. And once we get it, I didn't really cover like from once we entered World War II on because that was kind of like
It's pretty status quo
Let's-
because the
yeah,
Soviet
everybody kind of knew
the
at that
Soviet
point.
Union story is read pretty heavily.
Mhm.
If we talked about the last days of Stalin though, or are we going to?
We can.
You guys know about the last days of Stalin?
He was increasingly paranoid.
Really, really getting crazy.
He was just anybody who he even thought was going to try and seize controls of power dead immediately. Yeah, he was a completely reclusive and paranoid about
Say that
everything.
the last like 5-ish years of Stalin's life, he was pretty much a crazy figurehead. Like he does, he's not really doing anything. But
which they all turn into. at
yeah,
some
which they
point.
all turn into. He's very Capone like. He's kind of like maybe not syphilitic, but definitely drunk all the fucking time and doing drugs all the time and like really getting weird and paranoid and thinking that people are going to seize power from him. But he still has this this group of cabinet members, right?
Which I'm sure there was no shortage of people who did want to seize power from him.
Yeah, of course. That was 100%. There's this. The whole thing was, though, like, there was this culture in his cabinet of, like, you cannot say anything critical of the leader. You cannot say anything that undermines him, and you cannot say anything bad about him whatsoever.
Paint him in a white suit.
Yeah, but increasingly over time, the cabinet that he had was like a dozen people or something. They would, drop members randomly after some perceived slight, and they would end up dead.
Yeah.
Like Stalin would be calling in hits on his best friends. But when
he did that a lot.
yeah, but the atmosphere of that was everyone had to come to his house every night and get really fucking drunk and watch cowboy movies for like years. The entire cabinet's function was get so fucking obliterated, blackout drunk, and just sing songs and then watch cowboy movies because Stalin was like obsessed with them.
Yeah.
And then occasionally, once every couple of months or something, 11 would show up instead of 12. It would turn out that Stalin didn't like the way that somebody looked at him the night before, and they got fucking popped by the dumpster.
Yeah, there were a lot of people who, at some point during his reign were just super pro-Stalinists.
Mhm.
They would back him up. They were yes men, right? And as soon as people would start getting upset about something that was going on, a certain event, a certain famine, part of the Great Purge, anything like that, he would sell them upriver.
Yeah.
And he would go, oh, well, that's, so-and-so who's in charge of, the secret police or whatever.
Mhm.
And this would be somebody who was like his quote unquote friend, somebody who helped him get, somebody who backed all of his policies, somebody who was basically just doing what he said to do. And he'd go, oh, yeah, it was them.
Well,
And then that person would get executed without a trial.
Stalin famously refused to stay his own son's execution.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like his own son got wrapped up in political
Crazy.
upheaval. He got put in the gulag, got sent for his execution, and he did not save him.
Well, he wasn't really close with like his first son. When that 1907 robbery happened, he was like just freshly married with like an infant child at the time.
I believe that's the one that gets fucking executed.
No, he died during the war. That was Jakob, I think. I think was his name.
Jakob Smirnov.
I can't remember. I think his first son's name was Jakob. But like a year later, his wife died, and he left the son with her family.
There you go.
And then like later on, once he started getting into power, he married his secretary, like after the Bolsheviks took over.
Mhm.
And I think they had a son. And I think that son he was a little bit more close with. But I think
He has come to bounce on daddy's knee.
yeah, Yakov died in like
Have this vodka.
the older son died, I think, in battle, if I remember correctly. Maybe the second son is who
Like
you're
good
talking about.
Russian son.
Yeah, right.
But
yeah,
yeah,
I mean,
that's
it's crazy.
Stalin's whole deal was just like no remorse whatsoever for fucking taking somebody out.
No, there is no evidence that he personally killed anyone, which I don't know if the same can be said about Hitler. I don't know about Hitler. Is there evidence that Hitler
was
actually,
way too bitch made to
Yeah, I
actually
think you're
fucking kill
right.
anybody. He probably have pissed himself if he killed
Yeah,
someone.
I don't think Hitler
Well, I mean, no,
ever
that's not
personally
fair.
pulled the
Hitler
trigger.
was in World War One. That's not fair. What to Hitler? He was in
No,
World
no,
War
no,
One,
I mean-
and he was a
didn't say
decorated
that's not
soldier.
fair,
No,
did I?
I said it's not fair, and I said what's not fair to myself because I was talking in circles. But Hitler was a soldier in World War One, so I mean, maybe he did kill somebody.
Yeah,
at some
but he
point,
was like,
He was like a dispatch runner.
yeah,
World
he
War
ran
One.
the trenches, and he was decorated, but
a snivelly fart
lot of
smelling
the-
little bitch.
a lot of what's come out afterward is that he inflated his own involvement in the war, and most of the people who lived after he sort of the Nazi party started to come into power were like, that dude was lazy. That dude
fucking
didn't do
lame.
shit.
Yeah.
Which Hitler never had a job his whole fucking life. Stalin kind of never had a job his whole
Nobody likes my paintings.
life. Stalin never really had a job his whole life.
I mean, yeah, but Stalin did have a job. His job was killing motherfuckers. He's fucking
well, yeah.
blowing shit up, fucking doing crazy
Jesus.
revolution shit.
But
Blowing horses apart.
even that, I don't think he was the one tossing the grenades or shooting the bullets. That was all.
Yeah, but he was boots on the ground guy. You
Yeah.
know, like this isn't a White Tower kind of.
he was like
fucking,
elbow nudge, throw grenade, comrade.
oh, be loud, yes, blow up horse.
shoot guard in face, comrade. Go. No, I have my gun out too. It's fine. If I have to, I will. But you shoot first.
After Stalin died, I think stroke, something like that, stroke.
Thanks.
But after he died,
I think
there's actually a fucking really cool movie you can check out. It's called The Death of Stalin that covers like the days after Stalin's death. His whole cabinet was still so fucking petrified of what was going to happen to them if they said anything bad about him.
Yeah.
They couldn't even admit he was dead. Like they couldn't. They tried to. They were like the first couple people that discovered him are like, what was it?
Hemorrhagic stroke.
yeah.
But the first people that discovered him were like, can we call a doctor? Because a doctor is going to see that he shit himself. Like, then do we have to kill? Do we have to kill that doctor then? Because he knows. Because he would know. Do we have somebody clean him up? Because then we have to kill that person.
But when you look at so he died in 1953, I think. And when you look at First of all, it just goes to show like the whole fucking that's okay. Russia's communist. That's not communism. Not as far as a political philosophy. That was not communism. That was fucking military autocracy.
Yeah.
Right. With this sort of like, yeah, we'll be communist any day, and we're going to implement this where you guys all are part of a collective where we take all your shit and we distribute it. But there are still. It wasn't fucking classless by any stretch of the imagination. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like there was still a ruling class and a peasant class, which is completely antithetical to communism.
Yeah.
So at least as a political philosophy. So anytime people are like, oh, communist, and I'm like, there hasn't been an example of a communist country that has actually been communist because you can't.
Yeah, I mean, well,
You can't have a country of millions of people and be truly communist. Communism works in a commune.
I think
40 people max.
I have some problems with the idea that communism can't work as a philosophy, personally. But I don't have
on a large scale.
I don't
like
have the kind of problems where I'm like, let's try it out, because people are always sticking to one of 5 different philosophies. There's plenty of different ways to do things. But I think that communism very well could, but it would have to be in a strictly industrialized sense.
I think
everyone would have to be the same weight and have the same haircuts and wear the same clothes. And a lot of like China has done a very good job trying to replicate that sort of thing, or had previously.
China is a capitalist country
Now, but I'm saying like during the communist revolution, they were really big on same uniform, same haircut.
Yeah.
Same
By the way,
exercises,
Chairman
same
Mao
things.
killed more people than both of them.
Yeah, Chairman Mao, fucking crazy
20
shit.
million, something
But
like that.
Also, one of the more successful examples of like pure industrialized communism that also goes off the fucking rails.
Right. You can't. My feeling is you can't implement it at that large of a scale because there has to be somebody who controls how things get collected, how things get distributed. There's always going to be a ruling class, and by human nature, that ruling class is always going to want a little bit more, and they're always going to have trouble, ceding that control.
Well, there is one way that we may collectively on Earth find that sort of regulatory force with the advance of AI. Make them the leaders, and then they can regulate everything perfectly to the letter.
Is it AI?
It's I.
Is it just because I'm Latino that I've been calling it I this whole time?
Is that it?
I guess.
All right.
I don't know. What do you want to do?
Let's talk about how Stalin shit himself. Just because he's just a man.
Oh my god! If you
fat,
enjoyed
fucking mustache
listen,
man,
I promise next week is going to be so much more fun.
Anyone
this
who
one
rules
was
anything
hard.
is a dickhead.
Yeah, that's true. This one was hard. Next week's going to be way more fun. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but it'll be a lot. It'll be a fucking jaunt in the park compared to this one. But if you did enjoy this episode, hopefully you guys learned something, and hopefully you guys.
I did. I learned a lot.
Hopefully you like stupid Russian accents and Stalin singing the hits.
After midnight, going to let it all hang out.
Oh, holy night.
I don't know how I settled on like Borscht After Midnight, but that just
I
sounded.
don't know.
Yeah,
That was
I
a good
can
one, though.
see the fucking cover for that.
That was a good
like
one.
dusty thrift store album in my head, and it's Stalin like smoking a pipe and looking pensive.
Leaning on the piano. Or
Yeah,
something.
in a sweater. He's got a
Yeah.
like a turtleneck.
Killing Japanese, I think I'm killing Japanese.
On that note, thank you guys for tuning in to Delete Everything.
Yeah, if you guys like this episode, best way you guys can tell us is get on to whatever you're listening to. Leave us a review. Reviews are really, really, really highly weighted. Leave us a rating. 5 stars, I hope.
Really highly weighted.
Very highly weighted. 5 stars, I would hope you would give us. But, if you want to give us 1 star, don't. Just fucking, you should have stopped.
Don't, dickhead.
You should have
What the
stopped
fuck?
listening 2.5 hours ago.
Fuck you, 1 star. What are we talking? You leave us 1 star, I'll tell you what you're gonna get.
What are they going to get?
I'm fucking my fist in their star.
You get hammered and sickle.
They fucking get my foot in their chocolate starfish.
Gross. You can also send us a message if you want. DeleteEverythingPodcast@gmail.com. And if this is not enough for you and you want another 30-something episodes of us talking, if you like the unhinged parts of this episode, if you like the parts where we're just all over the fucking map and not actually talking about the topic, Patreon is the thing for you, man. You got to get on that. Patreon.com/DeleteEverythingPodcast. That's where you'll find us there. And with that being said, we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Wow, check it out. If you ever get a chance, we can do the Stalin dance. Shake your hips and raise your hands. Whoa, check it out. If you ever get a chance, we can do the Stalin dance. Shake your hips and raise your hands. Whoa, check it out. Shake your ass and drop your pants. We invaded fucking France.